Testing 1, 2. Yes, sir. And you'll have a clicker.
Joe, if everyone would come on in, please. We're going to try to get this show on the road on time. I think we need to get some law and order around it. The sheriff is on the way. I've already talked to the sheriff. He's coming. Yes. I'm going to limit people based upon the number of people we have signed up. Just kind of quiet down a little bit. I guess the choir is singing. That's why, or the piano's playing. There we go. Well, thank y'all. You know, you never know what to expect, but I didn't expect this big crowd, and I just appreciate it so much. This is and we'll talk about it a little bit in a few minutes, but this is very much a priority to the Georgia State Senate, and that's why we're here today. First of all, I want to thank y'all for being here, and then we're gonna be a little uplifted. This is gonna be a little bit different today. First of all, Pastor Donald Shavers is going to lead us in singing "God Bless America," and he's also going to do our prayer. That's why everybody's got in your seat. I got our office just to make sure you know the words, and I know you all do because you remember them from grammar school. So Donald is going to lead us in singing "God Bless America." And he's also going to do our prayer for us. And then Senator Russ Goodman is going to lead us in a pledge of allegiance to the Georgia flag, and in the Senate American flag, and in the Senate we also do the Georgia flag. So those of y'all that don't know the words of the Georgia flag, just kind of mumble on through. So, Patrick, this guy, you know, there's a lot of preachers out there, but this guy here, Donald, is a pastor. He takes care of his sheep. He works for the people. He visits people. He goes to the hospital. I see him a good bit at the hospital. He's just a wonderful person. He actually was my pastor of the day in the 23 session, and we just could not get everything coordinated for the 24 session. He's a pastor for Agape Worship Center in Statesboro. So, Donald, if you would please come up. And if everybody please stand, because we can't sing if not standing.
Well, let's sing it then. God bless America. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans, white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. Bless America, my home, sweet home. Let's pray. Lord, we thank you for allowing us to gather here in this room today. We thank you for the many blessings that you bestowed upon us. You've been a good God to us. We thank you for all of our leaders that you have provided us. The Bible teaches us that this earth is yours, Lord, and the fullness thereof, the world and all they that dwell therein. Lord, your word also tells us to pray for those that are in authority, those that lead us, that we may live at peace in this land. Lord, your word also instructs us to trust in you with all our hearts and lean not to our own understanding, in all our ways to acknowledge you and let you direct our paths. I pray now that you would do exactly that. Direct our paths. I pray that no leadership would lead out of emotions, but strictly from a leading of you. I thank you for being the God of all flesh. And this we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
All right, please join me in pledging allegiance to our nation's flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now our state's flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag, the Georgia state flag, to the principles for which it stands, wisdom, justice, moderation, and courage. And also, let me tell y'all, thank y'all for sharing Billy Hickman with us. He's a great American in my book, and he's been doing a lot of work on farmland preservation. And where's Miss Joanne at? You know, we love you even more. So anyway, great to be in Statesboro with y'all.
Thank you for those kind words. Thank you, Don. Very well done. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. I'm very fortunate that through a workforce development study committee last summer that I was on, that Senator John Alvarez chaired, we came up with several bills, but one of the bills that came out of all that, and then we later came down. Brad Bond and I came down here and met last summer with David, probably 35 farmers here at our ag center right over here, and out of that, there was probably 5 or 6 or 7 of those farmers that spoke with a lot of passion, and consequently, Brad and I took that passion and of course T.J. Hudson, T.J. Hudson, who is the Lieutenant Governor's person for this area. So if any of y'all need something from TJ, he's right here, and he'd be glad to give you a cell phone number. But we met with the farmers along with Toby Connor, who's one of our local county commissioners, and we saw a lot of passion, but also even to myself, it opened up my eyes. And I was born and raised around farming. Joy and I got a small farm in Canada County. Got some cows and timber and pecan trees and that type of thing. But it really opened up our eyes that this needs to be a priority in the Senate. And that's how we got to this point. And I'll tell you how much of a priority there was in the Senate Resolution 470, which is preservation of Georgia farmland. The 5 primary signers on that bill, 3 of those signers are full-time farmers. And the other 2 people, I'm one of the signers on it and primary sponsor of it, but I'm a part-time farmer. And then our Senate Majority Leader, Steve Gooch, was also a signer on it. So that tells you how much it means to the Senate. Our Lieutenant Governor, Burt Jones, has been a great supporter of ours on this bill. He's worked with us constantly, trying to get all the logistics worked out. And of course, his office has been tremendous for us. I failed to tell this, but after we met with the farmers that day, Brad and I and TJ and Toby and all, Brad took it upon himself and he said, I want to come back to Bullock County and I want to spend some time touring some farms down here. I want to spend some time with farmers. And so he came back, and he and I and Toby had lunch up here at the Gas Pro Minute Mark convenience store. They had great pork chops up there. If anybody wants pork chops, they had great pork chops. But we had lunch there, and then he and Toby spent the afternoon together. And I really think Brad reminded me that he actually was raised in the farming community of Tennessee. So that it just kind of all of a sudden started coming back to him also. So thank y'all for being there. That's how we got to this point. So I would like to look. I think we got one member of our local delegation. We got a great local delegation that consists of, for Bullock County, which consists of Speaker John Burns, who, as you imagine, is out and about. We got Butch Parrish, who is now Rules Chairman in the House. He's out and about. Lehman Franklin, I know Representative Lehman Franklin is here because I saw him. There he is right here. Lehman Franklin is here. Doing a great job for all of Georgia and surely Bullock County in his district. And his district is Bullock County, and also where the Hyundai plant is in his district. And then myself. And I think we also have a couple other senators, representatives that are not on our panel. I know I see Representative Bill Werkheiser. Bill, if you would raise your hand. Bill Werkheiser here from Glenville, Georgia, and then Senator Max Burns, Chairman Max Burns, down here at Ian. Max is Chairman of the Ethics Committee in the House. So again, I think that shows the support for this bill. I now would like to introduce our committee members, start with Senator Anna Vitarde. And if you would tell us, obviously, who you are, what your occupation is, where's your district, and also what committees you're on.
Good morning. Thank you, Chairman Hickman. My name is Jason Anna Vitarde. I represent Senate District 31. I reside in Dallas, Georgia, in West Georgia, both Paulding and Polk County. I'm on 9 committees. I couldn't even name all of them. So I'm on almost every committee in the Senate. Also had the opportunity to serve as our majority caucus chairman for the majority party in the Senate. I've worked in healthcare most of my life, but have a passion of what's going on in the ag community and the ag industry when it comes to food supply, security, and what's going on as it relates to foreign threats against land here in Georgia and across America. So Chairman Hickman, I want to say thank you for hosting us, and the Lieutenant Governor's office, our Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones, for being passionate about this issue and making this happen. Thank you.
Really, thanks for hosting us. Can you hear me? Thank you all for being here. I'm Brandon Beach. I represent Senate District 21, which is North Fulton, Alpharetta, Milton, and Cherokee County. I'm in my 6th term. I just completed my 6th term and running for a 7th term. I serve on COA, which is Committee on Assignments. I'm also Chairman of Economic Development and Tourism, and we realize agriculture is a big key component to our economic development and our prosperity in this state. Senator Vitarde and I, we both worked on a bill that prohibited the Chinese Communist government from buying our farmland. That's a national security issue. We're not going to have that. I want to thank him for all his hard work on it, and the governor signed that. That's going to protect our farmland from foreign adversaries. So with that, thank you for having us, and thank you for being involved.
Thank you. My name is Sam Watson, Senate District 11 from Moultrie, Georgia. I'm a vegetable grower down there and farm in Coffee County, and also have beef cattle there. And obviously agriculture is a passion for me, and it's how I provide for my family. And this just finished my first full term in the state Senate, and served 10 years in the House of Representatives prior to that. So just always been involved in agriculture, and great to be over here, and just thank all the farmers in the room for what you do. Appreciate it.
All righty. My name is Russ Goodman. I represent the 8th Senate District down in South Georgia. That comprises Lowndes, Eccles, Clinch, Lanier, Atkinson, Ware, and Pierce counties. I'm a 7th generation South Georgia farmer. Grew up growing peanuts, cotton, and tobacco, and now I'm a blueberry farmer. And so we grow about 500 acres of blueberries, and we're in the timber business as well. We plant trees in the wintertime and do site prep work. And we also, our family, we have the Great American Cobbler Company. I don't know if y'all have ever bought one in the store or not, but anyway, we make about 5 or 6 different flavors of fruit cobblers based right there out of Homerville. As far as my committees, I serve on Senate Retirement, Public Safety, Natural Resources, and also serve as Chairman of the Senate Ag Committee. So I'm just like Sam, I'm a lifelong farmer. Just about everybody in my family farms. I grew up in the 80s. During the farm economic collapse, when 1/3 of the family farms in this country were foreclosed on. I remember in 1986 when my own father had lost one of his farms. And so I guess growing up during that time period really gave me a huge passion that still burns inside of me today for the family farm. And so I want to thank Commissioner Harper for the work that he did bringing the Farmland Conservation Act bill that we passed in the Senate and the House and was signed by the governor. I know they're working on the rules on that. It's when you look at farmland, you know, we've lost 20% of our farmland in the state of Georgia since 1974. We average losing 2,000 acres a day across the country. The yield curve is not keeping up with the population curve, so it is very important. You know, you can't feed a population or feed an army if you don't have good land to grow it on. So thankful to my good friend Billy Hickman, Senator Hickman, for all the work that you've done and for being the lead sponsor on this bill. And thank you all for being here. It's really heartwarming that this issue is important to so many folks, and I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. The two senators that are not here, Senator Jason Estes from Atlanta and Senator Freddie Powell Simmons from Albany, Georgia. Both of those people are on the Senator Goodman's Agriculture Committee. In fact, four of the members of the study committee, to show you how four members of the study committee are on Senator Goodman's Agriculture Committee. That being Senator Goodman, Senator Watson, Senator Estes, and Senator Freddie Powell Simmons. Max, you want to say anything? I hate to. Okay, Max Burns, great guy down at the end. Max is from Scriven County, 20 miles from here.
Listen and learn what folks here in our region think. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. You know, I was thinking last night, you know, the purpose of this committee, or purpose of what we're all doing is we got to protect agriculture, but we've also got to provide jobs for our families. And where the balance is, people consistently have asked me, what is the goal of this committee? And I think the goal of this committee, like so many committees, is information. You know, we don't know what the answer is, but hopefully through this, we can come up with some bills. I've learned in my short period of time in the Senate that we can talk about things in a parking lot, we can talk about things on sidewalks, but until the legislature buys into it, then a lot of things don't happen. I'm Billy Hickman. I'm chairman of the Higher Education Committee in the Senate. I'm also chairman of appropriations for all of education, that's K through 12 and higher education in the Senate. I'm vice chairman along with Senator Beach of Economic Development and Tourism, and I'm secretary of the Finance Committee. So very, very important. I pulled this out of the bill last night. Senate resolution said the Senate shall evaluate farmland protection. This is the purpose. This is in the resolution. Shall evaluate farmland protection measures implemented in other agricultural states and seek the advice of experts in agricultural economics, tax policy, land management, economic development, environmental law and policy, and other disciplines in considering additional measures that may be necessary and appropriate for Georgia. That's pretty strong words. That's the intention of it. I want to give everybody an update on where the other committees are going to meet. We're actually, in case somebody leaves early, August 30th, we meet in Cornelia, Georgia at the Habersham EMC. September 25th, we meet in Senator Watson's area, Moultrie, Georgia at Ag Expo. October 28th, we meet in Senator Anna Vitardi's district, Cedartown, Georgia, Cedartown High School and College and Career Academy. And then November, we meet at the Capitol. And then shortly after that, we will render our report. I'd be very remiss if I didn't recognize our Georgia Southern University president, Dr. Kyle Morera, and ask him to give a few words about our great institution, Georgia Southern.
Well, good morning. I am the president of Georgia Southern and so blessed to be part of this community right here in Statesboro, Georgia. Donald, thank you for that. I wish you picked a baritone key, though. It was a little high for me. Okay, I'm just saying, early in the morning, but I was right there with you. On behalf of Georgia Southern, I welcome you all to Statesboro and to our continuing education building, where we provide ongoing training and credentialing to help our regional workforce skill up so they can advance their careers. I want to thank Chairman Billy Hickman and particularly Joanne for that beautiful green coat. I think it's perfect for today. You look great. And to the members of the committee for your important work to ensure that we continue to support the vitality of our state's leading industry. We appreciate that you all have chosen Bullitt County for your first meeting where agriculture and agribusiness is the lifeblood of our region. I've been asked to provide a few updates, as Billy had said, so I'm a president, so I'm going to brag about Georgia Southern for just a moment because I have the podium. It's just 2 weeks from the start of the semester tomorrow, and we are expecting over 27,000 students at Georgia Southern and a freshman class of over 5,000 students. And probably just as importantly, tomorrow is the first day of football practice, so you'll see me out there at 10 o'clock to watch our Eagles, and yes, we're going to be really good this year, so it's going to be exciting. We are a high-level research institution. We're on the path by 2027-28 to be the next R1 designated Carnegie institution in the state of Georgia. We have record research awards and expenditures of over $43 million just this last fiscal year, on our way to $50 million, which puts us in the top 6% of institutions nationally. We have an economic impact with 3,000 faculty and staff and 27,000 students of 1.1 billion annually to the region. Also for us, as we look at our notable programs that you know about that feed this region, particularly in the epicenter of growth, are going to be logistics and supply chain management, where we're working with industry leaders throughout our region to be a national hub for logistics technology innovation. Engineering, clearly our calling card at Georgia Southern, with over 2,300 engineering majors and bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees across 6 engineering disciplines, and the only manufacturing engineering program in the state of Georgia, critically important. Our largest undergraduate health sciences college in the state is the Waters College of Health Professions, with over 5,000 majors serving our region. Important fact, 1 in 5 undergraduate degree awarded in health professions in the state of Georgia is a Georgia Southern graduate. And as I get older, I know I'm going to need that healthcare support along the way. We just signed and had our ribbon cutting on Friday that Chairman Hickman and many of our delegation and the leadership of the governor and the lieutenant governor, the speaker, all supported for the partnership with the Medical College of Georgia Savannah at Georgia Southern. We're so excited to be having that. And then also thank you to our delegation, to our legislators for the support for the Dental College of Georgia, which will open in 4 years. Yet another partnership in which we can then serve the needs of our state. We have embarked on a public impact research agenda that has specific alignment with the needs of our region right here in Southeast Georgia, and put a strategic plan in place to grow that. The agenda centers around priorities that have tangible impact on the communities we serve. So I'm delighted to share some examples specifically in the area of agricultural practices and environmental sustainability in our state. And you're going to hear from some of our experts here today. Studies conducted right here at Georgia Southern show that composted materials are effective for soil nutrients, and our researchers have tested and validated a new, cheaper, and easier method to test soil organic content using color sensors. In another research, our researchers have developed improved irrigation techniques that significantly boost crop water productivity without reducing yields. And then the last example I have for you that's vitally important is our faculty have also found that portable X-ray fluorescent spectrometry offers a quick, eco-friendly way to analyze plant nutrients, which could revolutionize foliar analysis for many, many crops. It's innovative and forward-thinking approaches like these, developed through the expertise and dedication of Georgia Southern University researchers that support the state priorities in preserving and protecting Georgia's farmland. We are an active partner and participant in all of this. I want to thank you again for being with us today, and also look forward to you all hearing from Dr. Asli Aslan with our Institute of Water and Health. Clearly, water is the coin of the realm moving forward, as well as hearing from Heidi Jeffries with the Georgia Grown Innovation Center, which is also a partnership with Georgia Southern, Georgia Grown, and the City of Mentor to support small agribusiness owners. Again, thank you, Chairman Hickman. Thank you all for being here about this very, very important subject, and us working together collaboratively to ensure the future growth is purposeful within Southeast Georgia. Thank you all so much for being here.
I'll give her a chance to get sit down, but this is Senator Freddie Powell Sims from Albany, Georgia. I had a long drive, so, Senator Sims, what we've asked everybody to do is introduce themselves and tell where you're from, what you do for a living, and what committees you're on.
Gosh, good morning, good morning. Sorry for the tardiness. I'm State Senator Freddie Powell Sims from District 12 in Southwest Georgia, and I represent 13 counties. 13. Too early in the morning to remember them. But I'm very glad to be serving on this committee, and I have a wonderful chairman. So, Mr. Chairman, thank you so much for allowing me to work with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. We're going to go get started with our speakers, but first of all, let me make the announcement. We got a sign-up sheet here, and so we will give everybody, hopefully we give everybody at least 3 minutes that signs up, want to speak it in. So our first speaker is Catherine Moore, and Catherine is from she's president of Georgia Conservancy, and a lot of our statistics that Senator Goodman referred to a while ago, and so statistics I've used came from Catherine. So Catherine, if you would please come up.
Good morning. All right, thank y'all. And can you hear me? Doing all right over there? Okay, and y'all give me a thumbs up if I need to speak up. I may walk around a little bit because I do better walking than behind a podium. It is a privilege to be here, so I want to thank the committee on behalf of all at Georgia Conservancy for the opportunity to contribute to your thinking as you have many months ahead of you with this conversation. And we know that we look forward to seeing your report in December. As introduced, my name is Catherine Moore. I'm president of Georgia Conservancy, and I'd like to give you context because I am going to share a lot of data, and you may think that maybe myself and my colleagues are just data folks, but it's important for you to know personally, I'm from the great state of Alabama, although I have lived now longer in Georgia than I have in Alabama. I don't remind my mother of that very often, but I'm considering myself a Georgian now, and my personal background is that my father was the town veterinarian. So he was a large animal vet, moved into doing small animal work in his later years. And the farmers that have been discussed this morning helped put me through college, as did pine proceeds from the acres that my family owns and that we're still very proud to own in Alabama. So I have a personal interest in this. And then context also for the information I'm going to share is background of Georgia Conservancy. We're very proud to be your homegrown land conservation organization in the state of Georgia. We were founded in 1967, so we're approaching 60 years old this year. So the long game that is at stake while we think about concerns of the present and the immediacy of some actions, it is this long game that we are looking to help Georgia play for its long-term sustainability. But I mean that in the sense of economics as well as the environmental sense of sustainability. So my colleagues are here, can help me answer questions later if we have them, and let me launch into some of the information then. As you now understand that we are a statewide conservation organization, there was an internal conversation in our office several years ago. We're seeing our population grow, we're seeing land continue to be developed, and the question we began to ask ourselves of, can Georgia continue on this trajectory? Senator Goodman was talking about the loss of land and the future of ag and the robustness. We were having those conversations too. We were fortunate to enter into a partnership with some friends at Georgia Tech. You see their label there. And we asked them the question, and we arrived at a decision to look at the past to see what some of the past growth and change trends have been, so that maybe that could inform us as to things to do, not do, or do differently going forward. So I want to go ahead and take, if there's any errors or you have questions about the data, I'm going to go ahead and own that on behalf of Georgia Conservancy, and let's let Georgia Tech be clean in all of this. But what we ended up doing with them is looking at 50 years of satellite imagery. That 50 years from 1974 to about 2021 is the basis for all the information I'm going to share. We call that initiative Georgia Now and Forever. And so what Georgia Tech did was look at exactly what had changed in in a very detailed measure, looking down at kind of the acre level to the extent that they could get that far. And as you look year over year, as the satellite imagery was available, you can see where the change happens and the type of change. You can record that in GIS by putting a variety of different geographic and political boundaries on top of it, and you can calculate a lot of very informative information. And that's the background of our work. So let me use the clicker here as I was instructed. Thank you. This is why we have people that actually know what they're doing. There we go. All right, so I mentioned that we looked at 50 years of satellite imagery to detect what has happened, where has it happened, and what does that tell us? So let me go back in time for that. Okay, we're missing one slide, but that is absolutely fine. So we all know that about 50 years ago, of course, Georgia was a very different state. Our population was lower. We had less impact on the coast, in the mountains, certainly around. Can you imagine Metro Atlanta, for those of you that might have lived there 50 years ago? Very different place. But obviously, we have grown since then. Millions have been born here in the state. Millions have relocated for jobs. And we know that millions more will come. OPB tells us that about 2 million more folks will be here and to add to our population by 2050. So we have to ask ourselves, how are we going to continue to grow and accommodate all of those folks and their needs and keep this quality of life that we love in our state? I would like to leave you with a thought that our sustainable, just the ability to carry on over time, economic and environmental future here in Georgia is going to depend on the integrity of our land, the way that we use and the way that we steward our land. If we ever find ourselves in a resource crisis, we don't have enough land for housing, we are lacking the type of land that we want for ag or for timber, it's probably because we've made some poor land use or land stewardship decisions. And vice versa, if we find ourselves in a land crisis, then we're not setting ourselves up successfully for the resources that sit on top of the land. So we absolutely need to contemplate the integrity of our land, our responsibility around the decisions as to how we use it, if we want to avoid having any of these crises. And conversely, to be clear, my presentation this morning is not doom and gloom. You see the word crisis up there, but it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for us to make very intentional decisions, especially now that we have so much more information than our fellow Georgians of 50 years ago who were making similar decisions with their land. Now, why is the land so important? It is the host of everything that we need and everything that we do. That seems fundamental, but it's worth lingering on that fact for just a minute and kind of borrowing that perspective as you think about what we're going to do going forward as we develop our state and accommodate those additional millions that will come. So again, the land is the host of everything that is on top of it, whether it's the natural environment or it is the built environment. And you may not have really thought about things this way before, but our land itself is a limited resource. This boundary that we have, the acres that we have that are the state of Georgia, that's it. That is it. We are not going to have any more. So how are we going to accommodate millions more by 2050? And we hope that the world doesn't end by 2050, and there's going to be millions more after 2050. And so how are we preparing for the economic and environmental future of those generations? So that is one thought I wanted to leave you with, is that our land itself is a resource and our land is a limited resource. The next chapter, if you will, of my presentation is to share with you the trends from this 50-year land cover study that we undertook with Georgia Tech. I'm going to unpack each one of these for you. So Georgia's growing. We all know that. We've seen those changes in some small ways in our communities and some really significant ways in others, but it's growing quickly. I'll talk about that a bit more. Number two, low intensity development is driving the land cover change, and not just right outside the cities, the major cities of our state. Low intensity development is driving the land cover change across the state. Number three, land cover change, especially the development type. There's not this tidy kind of one-to-one relationship for, okay, if a population grows by 100 or 1,000 people, we kind of see X acres of land then become developed to accommodate those people. Because, right, our land is providing for all our needs. Like I mentioned a few slides ago, there's an outsized relationship, and we may in fact be developing a disturbing land inefficiently in an outsized way from our population growth. Unchecked land cover change is a threat, and it would be a growing threat to our top industries of ag, forestry, and the outdoor economy. But again, this isn't a doom and gloom presentation. Proactive, intentional decisions about our land use, our land reuse, and our land stewardship are the way that we need to think about our future. So let me unpack each of these. So our land is providing for all our human needs. And certainly for some humans that aren't here, as some of the committee were mentioning, that we need to feed others, not just Georgians across the globe. We know from OPB, or at least these are their projections for now, that different counties are anticipated to take on some more, some less in terms of population growth, and even some contraction could occur or is predicted to occur in some counties. However, all of the decisions those counties will make about that future change are going to be important to our larger landscape, especially as it pertains to protecting or conserving some special resources. So that's something to be aware of, and I'll revisit that theme of every community owning a little bit of responsibility about the future. I'm going to show you some maps now, but before I do, I wanted to give you a definition that you're going to hear me say over and over the next 12 minutes or so. When I use the phrase developed land, I am meaning land of all of these subcategories, from everywhere from the very intensely developed land that is your urban downtowns that you kind of stereotypically think of as big downtowns. Yes, that is developed land, but developed land is also that bottom category, which is developed open land. It's been changed by man. It's got some roads on it. It's got some houses, may have some roads, could be a golf course, but that's no longer natural. That becomes developed land. And so a real easy way to think about this, and I thank my colleague, for those of you like me that are visual learners, for putting this together. Over the next few minutes, when I say developed land cover, it's all of the types that you see on this slide, from our warehouses, our shopping centers, our subdivisions, apartment complexes, all the way down to kind of some of the real low density, more rural, large lot types of subdivision. That is developed land. So let me share with you, and I'm going to leave this slide up for a minute. You'll see some animation in that middle map as you see the developed land cover change in Georgia from 1974 to 2021. And it's very tempting to be distracted by that big bright blob that is Atlanta Metro in the middle. But please take a moment as you watch the animation, let your eye go to North Georgia. We think about our forest and our mountains and our really special riparian corridors that are up there. Please let your eye go to Central and South Georgia, our ag and forestry land, and you see that red grow, especially the smaller dots in between the larger communities. This is the growth that has happened of all those types of developed land that I just defined for you since 1974. Per our calculations, since 1974, Georgia's developed land has grown to 2.9 million acres. Remember, that was 2.9, that was something else. It's not that we've added more acres. It's been converted, is another word that you'll see. You know, it was something else before, and now it's some type of development. Once you put that development on it, it is almost impossible to undo that development. And what I'll continue to mention over the next few minutes is that the vast majority of that development is in fact low intensity, and the vast majority of that kind of low intensity or less dense development is residential. Therefore, going forward, it is impossible to be successful in thinking about conservation of our natural resources if we don't contemplate a partner method for addressing the very real housing needs that our state has. These must go together. You're going to have somebody who's an expert to talk about water, so I was just going to kind of skip over that watershed slide. Now, we have been successful with conservation in Georgia, and I want to thank DNR, who collects this information every year and provided this map that you see in the middle. Georgia has been quite successful. We have a map here of permanently conserved lands of all types across the state, different, whether it's federal money, local money, and then some private transactions individuals may be working with land trusts or others to put conservation easements or perhaps donating their property in fee simple to be permanently preserved. About 10% of Georgia's land has been permanently preserved. I kind of wanted to understand where that was in context. So we pulled a couple of numbers from some peer states here in the Southeast, if you will. And so about 16% of North Carolina is permanently conserved, and about 30% of Florida is permanently conserved. And remember, for point of context, Florida has about double our population. North Carolina is just a little bit shy of our state's population. And then that far slide, you see that conserved lands layer dropped in over top that latest 2021 developed land scenario. So it just gives you a sense. That's a whole conversation in itself of, are we conserving the right things at the right rates in the right places in our state? That's another conversation we can have at another time, but I thought you'd be interested in seeing those two pieces of data dropped in together. So if you're like me, you kind of think in regions. So another way to look at that 2.9 million acres that has been developed since 1974 was to look at a regional snapshot. So this is just another way to share that information with you. We borrowed the boundaries from the Georgia Regional Commissions, and then we broke the information down in acres. So I'll give you a minute to maybe find your region of preference or your home region and see those numbers. Obviously, Atlanta region is the big outlier there, but we're seeing significant numbers of developed acres in Northwest Georgia, over 300,000. Southern Georgia, almost 230,000. The Georgia Mountains, almost 260, and so forth. Just another way to look at that red map I showed you a few minutes ago. Now, one of the other trends that we've seen in our data, as I mentioned, is that the land cover change is not in sync with our population growth. This really could be its own study as well. And I want to be clear that as I explain this data, this is not to indicate that some communities are doing a quote unquote bad job or some that are doing a great job with their work, but this is a quick way to look at the data. These are the 13 MSAs minus Atlanta. The dark brown is the developed land in that particular MSA, and the kind of tomato red is the population growth. What you're seeing is some communities, Warner Robins, Savannah, Gainesville, they have grown in population, but their developed land bar is a little bit less. That would beg us to kind of wonder, are they doing things pretty efficiently? Are they providing for all those human needs of the land, but doing it relatively efficiently? I don't know, but that's a question that one would ask. You're seeing some other MSAs on this bar graph that have grown in population, to be certain, but they have disturbed or developed more acres than their population. I'm sure there's some factors influencing some of that, industrial area, warehouse development, but still that probably doesn't explain all the other acres. So that would lead you to wonder, maybe could they be more efficient in the future with the way that they're meeting the human needs with their development pattern? That's just an exploration to be had, but that's another way to look at this, is that we can be very efficient if we choose to meet our human needs with our land. One of the other trends from our land cover change analysis is, we are growing concern as the committee has introduced themselves and mentioned, how are we going to protect the economic activity and the jobs that we have in Georgia with our timber and our ag land? Right now, with our population at about 11 million, you see some of the major, you see just a handful of the major industries in our state, and I included the outdoor economy, which is not insignificant in our state there. And you have to ask yourself, as we have done this with our land, how are we going to look in the future when we're at 13 plus million and then again beyond 2050? We have to think how to grow sustainably. So the reason that you're all here is to look at the ag and a little bit to the extent too at the forestry. So this is those same figures, that same 50 years of land cover change, and how has that impacted forestry? You see a heat map there of some of the counties that have seen from 7.4% in terms of loss in their counties of forest land. And we've estimated the total loss of forest land to be about 2 million. Our numbers are a little off from the Georgia Forestry Association, but not dramatically so. I would argue they're consistent enough. We had a little different methodology in the way that they trace things. And then what you're all here to see, this is a map of the state and our loss of ag land. Our 50-year analysis has found since 1974 that 2.6 million acres of ag land has been permanently lost. Ag land, that's the whole category from pasture, row crop, orchards, and vineyards. Those have been permanently converted to some other land use. And you see the heat map again of the counties that have seen the greatest amount of change. Interestingly enough, those counties are somewhat similar to our ag belt and where some of our high quality ag soils are. The expansion of low density residential is one of the major threats to ag land. Of great interest I know to a lot of folks has been the utility solar industry and the change that we're seeing as some acres come online with that industry. I'd like to emphasize for you all that this is an emerging industry. We don't have a lot of years of data behind it, and it's an emerging technology. Let me jump ahead for a minute. I want to show you something. So we worked with a different group at Georgia Tech. There's not one clearinghouse, one place you can call and say, hey, can you give me all the figures and the acres and the locations of where the utility solar fields are that have been constructed. We had to work from publicly available data. I'm sure that we missed some, but at the same time, I'm very confident in the numbers that we had as of on the ground solar as of fall 2021. I feel like we got a good bit of the data there. And what we found working with this different group at Georgia Tech is at that time on the ground constructed fall of 2021 was that 30,000 acres of utility solar was online. Again, I'm acknowledging we missed some, but I don't think we missed a lot. And that still pales in comparison to the impact of low density development in terms of what is a threat to our ag land. Of that 30,000 acres, we were able to determine the previous use, yes, had most definitely been some form of agriculture from cultivated crops to grassland. That makes sense. That was some cheaper land for somebody to buy. There wasn't as much land prep to put in the solar fields, and there was a smaller percentage that had previously been forested. But the big takeaway here is the developed land cover being more predominant as a threat. So as I wind down, the future is that all of this, if you see concerns here, if you see opportunities in this data, can be addressed, can be harnessed through intentional decision making. Well, we have to own that. We have to be responsible for that if we decide it is in fact a priority to have these viable economies going forward. So I'd like to leave the committee with a couple of target things to contemplate over the next few months. Through this 50 years of, or this analysis, we haven't been doing it 50 years, but we looked at 50 years of data. Through this analysis, we think it's key that we identify our highest priority natural resources. That's already been done. DNR has that, the State Wildlife Action Plan. But what we all can decide to do is to find the political will to protect them. That includes working farmlands as well as things that we may take as everyday common resources, our tree canopies, our riparian areas, our wetlands, and our small towns that we think, well, they're not that special. They are, because how did that red on my maps happen? One project at a time, one community at a time. And that's the way conservation and protection is going to happen as well. Also, I think I shared with you and made clear that every community and the way that it is choosing to develop and accommodate its change in the future is having a statewide impact and a landscape scale impact. So whether a community is 1,000 acres or 1,000 people or 100,000 people, the local decisions have ripple effects. And so local ownership around stewardship, especially where we can redevelop, infill, and reuse our land, are going to be key to that sustainable future. And then finally, we're going to have to figure out a way to curb the low intensity development. I want to be very clear, this is not me saying we should not have housing choice. I think this is an opportunity for communities to think about different ways to provide development in their community, making sure they have a diversity of options. Again, we've got dead strip malls, we have other lands we can reuse, we can infill, and we can redevelop instead of just automatically going to greenfield development. And I'll leave you with the thought, going back to my red across the map, that even small things that happen across our communities begin to fragment that landscape. These are just a snapshot of examples, Hayhira, Cornelia, Winder, that we think are small communities, not a big deal as something comes online. But in fact, as we carve up our land, and specifically what we've seen a lot of communities do is get concerned about development, get concerned about the population growth, and go to a large lot zoning approach to protect their communities. That's how we end up consuming the land. And that's just something for our community leaders to think about going forward. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here for you. I've just left some other categories of things. I shared with you the major trends from a 50-year analysis of land cover change here in Georgia. I believe that some answers around investing in land conservation, investing in how we're providing housing, investing in thinking more about redevelopment and infill versus just automatically developing the greenfield, and thinking as a state, as much as we need local positive decisions to happen, are probably part of the way to go forward. And I thank you for allowing me to go over time.
What a great presentation. You know, those of us that have been working on this have seen these numbers before, but and many of y'all in this room that are here today did not know the magnitude of those numbers, but you now know the magnitude of the numbers. One thing that Catherine did not say, and I've used it a bunch of times, in fact, I used it yesterday, and it really kind of resonated with me. Her comment was, the greatest hindrance to agriculture is unplanned growth. Think about it. The greatest hindrance to agriculture is unplanned growth. Joy and I was going to Savannah last week for the big ribbon cutting that Dr. Moreira was talking about. And a field on I-16 that we typically go by, and I see some guys from the lower part of the county here, we go by, and in the past, David, it was cotton and peanuts in that field. Today, it's 3 houses sitting in that field. No more cotton and peanuts in that field. That's the kind of thing we're talking about. Our next speaker, and I'm gonna butcher your name. I am so sorry, but Dr. Ashley Oslam, very close. She is the director of Georgia Southern University Institute for Water and Health. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Can you all hear me? My name is Aslı Aslan. I am a professor at the College of Public Health, also the director for the Institute for Water and Health. And thank you, Senator Hickman. Thank you for the committee to allowing us to speak today. I'm going to be talking about one of our most important resources, that's water. Let's see. So our institute is relatively new. It's been about 3 years since we are established, but I'm a water scientist by training. I came to the US in 2008 for my postdoc for Michigan, another agricultural area. And when I was being interviewed for Georgia Southern University in 2013, the moment I was flying through Savannah and seeing all this land, the farmland, the rivers, the estuaries, and the coastline, I said, this is the place to study water. And I think there's so much to be done. When I was interviewing for my position, I said, in 10 years, we're gonna have a center here. We're gonna have a water center. And I think that was a dream come true. The university had been amazing in identifying this as a priority and investing on that. So I'm gonna talk about the Institute today, what we do. Let's start with our mission. You know, I'm a microbiologist. I'm a molecular microbiologist. I do a lot of work around technology, do a lot of stuff in the lab. But at the end of the day, if that stays in a lab, in a report, and doesn't translate to the public and serve to the public, it doesn't do anything, right? So our mission at the Institute for Water and Health is to provide that science and technology, the advancement, to the service of the people. And we work a lot with the communities, and I'm going to give you some examples about that. So about IWH, we are based in Savannah, but we are actually working in many different communities across Southeast Georgia and starting to develop some more relationships nationally as well. We're 21 affiliated faculty from many disciplines. When it comes to water, you can't really do microbiology, right? It has to be a comprehensive, holistic approach. We have educators, we have engineers, we have biologists, chemists that all work around the same mission. And we are very lucky in Georgia Southern that we have 21 of those amazing people. At the Institute, we are right now located in our newly renovated old GBI building, Criminal Labs. We're at building 4. If you have time today or anytime soon, please come visit us. It's an amazing facility with 4 different laboratories, from drinking water to wastewater treatment to molecular labs and chemistry labs. We have fantastic undergraduate and graduate students, not just from Georgia Southern, but from regional. This summer, we had paid internships for our students from College of Coastal Georgia as well. And we work with our citizens. We work with our communities. They are the ones actually who co-create the research that we are doing around this area. And you probably have heard about this. The US Congress also funded us for $2 million. That's coming in September for a program that we're starting. It's called Safe Water Together program. It's the federal funding that will help us to work with the communities to understand their issues within the each of the community, because each community has their own specific issues, right? We have been talking about today, Catherine really nicely mentioned about that population growth that we're having and what that means for water. And also we do have a lot of aging water infrastructure. Think about the septic systems in our farmlands and all the older buildings that has water issues in their environment. We have sea level rise and saltwater intrusion. We're sitting at a place where most of our water comes from Floridan aquifer that is threatened by seawater intrusion. And then on top of that, we have a lot of other issues coming from nutrient runoff to emerging contaminants. You're gonna see more of that for drinking water, for example. PFAS rule is coming, right? Those forever chemicals. How is that gonna impact eventually our agricultural products as well? Because we use a lot of that water, obviously. And all of that eventually impacts the vulnerable the most. Some of our places that we're working, for example, is in Brunswick area, where there's agriculture, but also there are communities that are sitting on Superfund sites, toxic hazardous waste sites, that the homes are not well equipped to deal with that, or the water that's coming to feed that population is not clean enough. So with the Safe Water Together program, our approach is to first go into the communities, talk to the communities, learn from communities about their issues. And depending on the geography and location, we are doing environmental assessment, developing that database. We need data to be able to solve these solution problems. We also have a group of people who can also take that data and do more modeling and risk assessment and risk communication. We have a whole team of that. And eventually, okay, we're talking a lot of problems, but what are the solutions, right? So we have another group that actually starts working around what are the cost-effective, nature-based, next generation solutions to be able to address these water-related issues. So every time somebody flushes a toilet, right, it ends up somewhere in a water resource, in soil and water. How do we actually address that? One of the solutions or methodologies that we have been using a lot lately with our municipalities and local governments has been microbial source tracking. This is a method where the surface water or groundwater, doesn't matter, where you can actually look at the high levels of pollution and identify the source, whether that's coming from a leaking septic system, or is it coming from some animal pollution or from wildlife. Why is that important? Well, because then you can actually fix that problem. if this is a leaking septic system, then there's a solution. You fix it and that problem is completely gone. When you look at the recent reports, 85% of our surface water in Georgia is impaired. A lot of them are bacterial pollution. That's coming from aging infrastructure or runoff. Every time it rains, we're having lots of rains, right? That actually stays in the environment for longer terms and eventually impact the quality of life. If you're a blueberry grower, for example, you will use that water. How do you make sure that that water is clean enough to make sure that you can sell it? So using these kind of methodologies, these are molecular methods. You can actually detect the source of pollution within 2 hours of sampling. Same day, you can actually identify the problem and then talk with the decision makers and make sure that that is actually solved. We've been working with our local municipalities a lot on this. One of the studies that we have done as an institute has been at Bryan County, at Ogeechee River Keeper. This is an area where DNR have been finding high levels of E. coli for over 15 years, but they were not able to identify where the source of that high levels of E. coli were coming from. If you look at the map, there are not many settlements. There are a few homes, and a lot of them are not even too many. So where is that high levels of bacteria are coming from? So we did this study, and if you look at the map, the graphs, you will see that in about 5 months, the numbers decrease. The reason for that is when we started in October, yes, we saw high levels of E. coli. Then we collected samples and did the analysis, and we started seeing this human marker, which is a molecular method, like I said, that was high. Okay, there is some septic system somewhere that's leaking. Now we know, but where is it, right? So we did more in-depth analysis, almost like playing hot and cold game, right? You get to the sample much closer to the, and eventually we figured that it was the state parks toilet. The septic was leaking into that water area. We called the county, they immediately went there the same day, and then they found the leak, they did some rhodamine tests, they fixed it. And next month, when we went back again, there were no human markers. So that's that efficient, right? So you can actually fix a problem permanently. We do this kind of work a lot with other municipalities, but this can be also done in other places as well. This is the city of Savannah's Vernon River, which is known also a lot with the contaminated water. We can actually create these hot zone, the maps that are more polluted by just looking at bacteria or any other contaminants, could be nitrates, right? Then this really helps us with prioritizing, right? When we talk to the decision makers, where does the funding gonna go to fix that problem? How do we prioritize the resources to fix that problem? So that also has a lot of help with the management as well. Another technology we're working on is, okay, we have all this contaminated water here and there, sporadically, and impaired waters. How do we actually treat that water efficiently using nature-based something, right? In this case, it's algae, okay? We actually set this up at a wastewater treatment plant effluent because this is where we know there was high levels of nitrogen. And this channel on top of the actually flow through the wastewater treatment plant into that channel and out to the Ogeechee River. With the sun, of course, and the algae within the effluent, that started growing with removing most of the nitrogen that's coming from the treatment plant. And at the end of the experiment, you can actually see 70% decrease in nitrogen levels going out in the outfall into the river. We looked at this then, okay, if this is removing really nitrogen, because algae needs nitrogen, can this also be remove some of the emerging contaminants? So we looked at antibiotics, we looked at pharmaceuticals. It is a very promising project. The results were astonishing that we are actually seeing significant decrease in these chemicals as well. How is that relevant to farms? Irrigation ponds, right? Irrigation ponds, most of the time, we get the runoff from all that water flowing into it. So we put another of this system in Dodge County, looking at how the irrigation pond water quality can be improved using these algae. EOE heard about this project. Now they're interested. Why Department of Energy is interested? Because algae can then be used for energy. Biofuels, for biofuels. So we're talking about a circular economy where actually farmers can use it, for example, when they set it up in their own systems and create their own energy, using water as a resource and without losing the water as a resource. So in Georgia, we also have another issue about private wells. 120 out of 159 counties have private wells. How many of you are on private wells? 1 in 9 Americans, 1.7 million in Georgia. Now, by law, Safe Drinking Water Act, private wells are not regulated by law. It's really up to the homeowner to make sure that their water is safe for their families. So that means that there has to be a lot of training and community outreach, partnerships to be needed to make sure that the word's out there. So that's what we have been doing for a couple of years. A paper is coming out of that this month. One of the studies we've done was to work with our communities in Evans County. It's funded by the foundation over there to look at if we provided some treatment technologies to the homeowners, would they be willing to use them? Have they ever tested their well water? Have they ever maintained their wells? And what do they do when they do that? So we did a lot of surveys, we collected a lot of data, but we found out over 3 years that 34% have ever tested their water, and 41% was about a decade. Now, EPD, the health department recommends to at least test once a year. Why? Because things change, right? We have more floods, we have more water really staying around. So how does that affect our ground? And only 25% of them were actually treating their water. There are some beliefs about, chlorine is bad for it, right? So how do we actually work with communities about what is the best way to treat their water without being disturbed? And only 16% actually maintain it. So there's a lot to do, and that's just a snapshot of one county. So we're trying to, with the Safe Water Together program, we're going to also expand that as well. So moving forward, we are a research, education, and outreach center. A lot of our research translates in our public impact, like Dr. Maria mentioned. With the Safe Water Together program, we intend to increase our impact in the coastal Georgia counties and expand towards inland as well. We do provide services through our certified labs to be able to detect the water quality of this well or any other sources. We do work a lot with our local municipalities, water utilities. About in about 10 years, 60% of our water utility operators are going to be retired. So that means that there will be a huge need for improved workforce in that area as well. So we're working with our partners from Georgia Tech, from Emory, to see how we can actually develop training programs for example, high school students who are not interested in going to a college. Maybe this will be the pathway for a profession for them. We also offer summer internships and paid internships for our students as well. The project that I mentioned in Brunswick, we actually worked with the community. The research question was developed by the community along with them. And they became our first citizen scientists in the region. They had a little water laboratory lab at Brunswick now that they run, they own it. And we are working with them to actually also look at some of the legacy chemicals that they have been exposed to in Superfund sites. We just finished our first adaptation training for coastal communities in July. We're gonna do that again in partnership with NOAA, so it's a federal partnership. I'm excited about continuing that. So in summary, again, we are here for your service. We're here to help you with anything that you need in terms of water challenges. With that, these are our existing partners, and I'm happy to take questions. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Our next speaker is Heidi Jeffers, and Heidi is director of the Georgia Grown Innovation Center. And I think Senator Watson, you'd be interested in one of the guy that she brought with her is Grant Anderson, and Grant is a different type farmer, and he's going to do a little presentation, right? Yeah, do a little presentation for us too. Heidi is located over in Meadow, Georgia, about 20 miles from here. So Heidi,
Thank you so much for having me today. The Georgia Grown Innovation Center, as you said, is located in Mentor, Georgia. It's a testament to the unwavering programs that we've developed. Most of that is to help agricultural producers ranging from growers to food manufacturers grow. The Innovation Center serves as a cornerstone of collaboration. We looked at other incubators across the state and thought, what can we do differently? How can we pull all of our services together? There's so many services across the state that are available that people just don't know about. So we're ushering in a new era of agricultural advancement by bridging the gap between numerous stakeholders in the agricultural sector. Our program is affectionately known by its team members as the GGIC. So most people say the Georgia Grown Innovation Center. Well, that really is not how most people know our program. I'm the director of the City of Meadows Economic Development Plan. I work and also the director of the Georgia Grown Innovation Center. The center was created as part of another plan. It was called the Georgia Grown Community. The City of Meadow was looking at ways we could promote our city. Well, of course, agriculture is the largest industry in the county, but also in Georgia. We pulled together some of our leaders. We did our plan. Part of our plan was to showcase Georgia-made products and Meadow-made products. We remodeled our Welcome Center. We turned it into the first store in Georgia. And then we also created an economic development plan, an incentive plan for businesses to be able to locate in our community. Secondly, we started with the Innovation Center. We had an old building in Meadow that needed a lot of work. We looked at our partners with DCA and others on how we could renovate those. And we did a One Georgia agreement to help renovate the building. We also did a feasibility study with Georgia Southern University. What can we do that is different? Well, ag is what we wanted to be. So that took a lot of talking about just to come up with an ag incubator. So we did community meetings, we met with our ag partners, and we found that we could do it. So we partnered with Georgia Southern University, we partnered with the city and Georgia Grant. As we're looking forward, our mission is clear: to ensure sustainable growth to champion Georgia's rich agricultural legacy from ground to market. As you heard, we do believe in the power of collaboration. We're not territorial in any way. We want to help everyone. Our services are provided from state agencies to, we have 5 consultants that we work with through grants that do all different types of things. We strive to have a program that not only supports but inspires, a network where opportunities are abound and knowledge flows freely. Our vision for Georgia's agriculture is a future where we stand as a shining example for innovation, collaboration, and prosperity. We see a resilient, interconnected community where every producer not only survives but thrives. We support our farms, our farmers, and champion our innovators. By doing so, we honor our past but also see a bright future. Who are we? The GGIC is a welcome celebration. We unite economic development agencies, nonprofits, universities, proactive governments, and many more. By pulling all these groups together, we devise diverse partners where we can have a robust network to collaborate with agricultural producers across the state. Each member in our group brings a unique set of skills. As we pull our collaborators together, we look at ways, we tell them what we're doing. This is who we are. We're not in it for ourselves. We're in it for Georgia agriculture. So if your heart is there and you just want to help farming and food, we are your group. We will be your partner. And we found the more we say those kinds of things, the faster it grows and how many more people want to be involved with us. Beyond education, it's not about what we learn, but how we grow together. We collectively do programming that supports idea sharing, knowledge sharing. Growers work with manufacturers and create new products and solutions. Brand is a great example of a new product that we'll talk about in a few minutes. We also have a way to share and exchange ideas. We look at, we have workshops and panel discussions where people can openly discuss their problems, openly look at things to do, how to make their business better. We offer a wide variety of tools and resources that include farmers, processors, ranchers, agritourism operators, and food-focused businesses. We do an intake process where we bring a farmer or a agribusiness into our group. We ask them, what are your needs? What do you think you need? How many acres do you want? What kind of business do you have? And then we put all that information together and we share it with our resource partners. So everyone has access. We say, okay, how each partner can help. Sometimes what you think you need is really not what you need. You're not quite ready to get there. A great example of this is EKC Pecans. They're located in Camden County. Maddie and Curtis Collins, they came to us they were focused mainly on shelling their pecans to a sheller. They wanted to look at wholesale and retail. We helped them reevaluate their model cost. They considered factors from planning to harvest and our whole team looked at their product. Well, they found out a lot about that. We connected them with someone who does wholesaling in Atlanta where they could sell their product to see how to do product forecasts for them, to know how to get the market there. How do you get your product to Atlanta? So we worked all those things through. We also exposed some social media and another type of media. We put them in magazines. We let them tell their story. I'm a big fan of storytelling because if you can tell your story, you can touch people, you can reach them. And that comes apart so authentically. Everyone here has a story to tell. Everybody's got something to talk about. But if you can tell it in a way that is meaningful, that can talk about how your family came across their farm, what happened, how'd you get here, that really is it's really wonderful. So they were in the Georgia Grown magazine. They also were in the Candler magazine, the Farm Bulletin, the Georgia EMC magazine. They also were in one of my favorite shows, A Fork in the Road, that's produced by the Department of Ag. They showed their segment. They showed how they work with Common Market, how they work with our resource partners. And it's really amazing. If you have not seen Fork in the Road, it is really a great way to find out about all different types of producers and agribusiness around the state. Ultimately, EKC Farms decided they wanted to go to direct-to-consumer retail. That is who they wanted to be with their customers. They miss the people they talk to every day about when they sell their pecans. They also came up with an agritourism approach that I really think is going to be big for their business. Having school children come look at where pecans come from, how it works, and all those things. But we're also looking at a state program where we can connect some agritourism together with our Department of Agriculture. So that's exciting. But through these partners, they work with 5 different partners in our group. And as we began with a strong alliance with the City of Mentor, Georgia Southern University, we have included other universities. We now work with federal, state, and county agencies. We work with municipalities around the state. We work with private businesses, industry partners, and nonprofits. We started with 14 clients. Now we are at 160 with about 20 more in the pipeline trying to get there. Over 4 years, we've had over 7,000 people that have attended our either meetings and workshops, panel discussions. That is huge. Our center only holds 80 people. So imagine how much traffic that's caused. But as we were growing, we saw that we had people from all over Georgia that came to our center. We had people from Albany, the other night we had someone from Columbus that drove 2 hours or 4 hours for a 2-hour meeting. But we just saw this wonderful collaboration. So as we grow, now we're looking at Albany to be our next hub, where we can move this programming that we're doing here in Medford and with all of our partners and open up a new type center in Albany area. We're looking at other parts of the state. But what I'm saying, collaboration works. I know you've seen my slides and I have that many times. But working together does work. I know we've said that many times before. But I'd like to thank you, Senator Hickman, for everything in the committee. And if you ever have any questions or would like to talk about our center or how we can help you, please reach out. Thank you very much. Lastly, I'd like to bring Grant in. He was one of our anchor tenants. He's with Better Fresh Farms. And he's recently been featured in the Georgia Trend magazine as one of the new pioneers for advanced.
Hey, y'all. I'll try to be a little less formal. I got a specific amount of time here, so I wrote some things down to try and be succinct. Have a tendency to run on, but very honored to be here. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the introduction, Ms. Jeffers. And also, thank you, Senator Hickman, and your wife, Joanne, for y'all's support over the years. Your encouragement has meant a lot, so thank you. In my journey to put agriculture on the map in a different way in Georgia through alternative means, would be remiss if I also didn't thank Commissioner Tyler Harper, the Georgia Department of Agriculture, and Matthew Kalinsky with Georgia Grown for their support of farmers like myself trying different means. The confidence that the Georgia Grown brand brings to consumers in the state of Georgia immediately makes our products interesting. And so really appreciate what you guys do to represent Georgia farmers through Georgia Grown. A quick fun fact for you, without the support of my local Georgia grown marketing rep back in the day, Tom Neville, I probably would have never relocated my business, Better Fresh Farms, from Effingham County to Candler County. Becoming the anchor tenant of the first kind of innovation center in the state of Georgia that we have in Metter. What a blessing that relocation was in a number of different ways for us. To provide a little context for you, I became aware of hydroponic shipping container farms back in late 2015 as I searched for a new career path. It immediately piqued my interest based on the reduced quantities of water and fertilizers needed for hydroponic systems to feed plants, along with the elimination of any needs for chemical applications for pest or weed management. After roughly 6 months of research, a deep dive into the 2015 USDA Ag Census, and multiple conversations with the University of Georgia Small Business Development Center, I truly felt as though the good Lord was leading me to pursue a career in controlled environment agriculture. At the time my business began in 2016, less than 6% of individuals listing farming as their full-time job in the United States were under the age of 35, stirring in me a strong sense of responsibility to figure out how to bring better quality food options to our great state. Since lettuce is relatively easy to grow hydroponically and the most widely consumed leafy green in the United States, accounting for roughly 1/5 of a $21.8 billion vegetable and melon industry in 2022, and considering nearly every single restaurant has a use for it, I felt it was a natural start. Recent statistics also support this decision, especially considering our primary lettuce crop of romaine was part of a $1.5 billion U.S. market in 2022. That is expected to see continued growth over the coming years as well. Here are a few other reasons why I still feel we could benefit from producing more of this crop in Georgia. One being 94%, I'll repeat that, 94% of lettuce produced domestically in the U.S. comes from California and Arizona. That's a long trip. Needless to say, with farm input wages, transportation, and insurance costs seemingly continuously on the rise, I feel it would behoove Georgia consumers for us to figure out more fresh and cost-effective options to grow in our state. The average cost of romaine lettuce in the U.S. has increased more than 61% from 2016 to now, further galvanizing a need to produce more cost-effective and regionally accessible methods of production for leafy greens. And finally, the United States is the world's largest importer of lettuce, bringing more than $631 million worth of it from other countries in 2022, leaving what, in my mind, is a lot of available opportunity here in Georgia. With today's focus specifically being the preservation of farmland, I also believe controlled environment ag provides an opportunity to create value for both Georgia farmers and Georgia consumers through what we've learned over the last few decades of technological advancement. For example, at Better Fresh Farms facility in Metter, we currently harvest over 1,500 pounds of leafy greens from our systems every single week, year-round, in less than 7,000 square foot of space. This means assuming 1 acre of row crop lettuce generates roughly 11,000 pounds per seasonal harvest on average, we produce the equivalent of 7 acres of lettuce annually on roughly 0.16 of an acre and with over 95% less water than pivot irrigated lettuces. Back to my business journey. Since moving both my business and my family to Metter in 2019, we've expanded from 3 employees to 10 and from 2 40-foot shipping container farms to 8. Having now harvested and sold produce out of these containers for over 408 consecutive weeks since the fall of 2016, we've experienced more than 20% growth in sales year over year for the last 5 years we've been in Metter, due in large part to improved growing system designs, but also to the support of Georgia Grown and our local municipality. We continue to find more and more ways to serve the citizens of Bullock, Candler, Effingham, Chatham, Bryan, and a number of other surrounding counties. In an effort to highlight our opportunities beyond leafy greens, through collaboration with Chris Shamoon, formerly at the Georgia Center of Innovation, we're now participating in a USDA block grant study with Kennesaw State University to research growing fresh culinary mushrooms year-round in shipping containers. Ben McKay with Georgia Southern University Center for Business Analytics and Economic Research worked with us to produce a feasibility study helping substantiate our move into mushroom production. Stephanie Long at the Statesboro USDA FSA office helped us get approved last year for a farm expansion loan to add infrastructure to support this pending mushroom production. With these funds, we've since expanded refrigerated storage, added a refrigerated delivery truck to help distribute seasonal produce for other local farmers, and purchased a local honey company. Finally, considering I also serve as the CEO of Four Fungis Incorporated, I have to mention our $27 million plan for local ag waste processing and alternative food production in the Candler County Industrial Park. This was championed by Candler County IDA Executive Director Hannah Mullins, further showing our local support. Local Statesboro firm Clements Engineering Services is leading the charge for us on this project, solving a variety of challenges we need to figure out to make this dream a reality, to create wealth for ourselves and our local farm processors out of ag byproducts. Wendy White from the Georgia Manufacturing Extension Partnership at my alma mater, Georgia Tech, has also worked with us to help navigate FDA guidance on mushroom production at a commercial scale in this new facility. I like to believe this all proves there's much greater potential for the impact of alternative agricultural practices in Georgia than just lettuce, real potential to supplement current traditional practices. To wrap my bit of your morning up, I'd like to echo what Heidi said a short while ago. The networking and collaboration opportunities I've been afforded through the Georgia Grown Innovation Center in Metter have been paramount to our growth. I'll forever be grateful for the chance Heidi Jeffers, the city of Metter, and Georgia Grown have given me to work on proving the value of controlled environment agriculture here in rural South Georgia, as well as the immense support they've provided in the last 5 years since we arrived in Metter. I also did my best to convey to you the abundance of capable support we have statewide here in Georgia. Please note, I could have listed a lot of other folks who contributed to our progress over the years. It would have been a pretty boring 6 minutes and probably a little less informative. That said, with all the agricultural knowledge and experience present here in this room today, I'm confident we can figure out how best to leverage this emerging industry to better feed our growing population, plan to more efficiently utilize the acreage we still have available to farm, and advance ever closer towards food sovereignty for Georgians. Thank you.
Senator Adam retarded. You heard where you graduated from, right? Huh?
Yes, the greatest school in the state of Georgia.
Yeah, Georgia Tech. So here's a guy that got an engineering degree from Georgia Tech. Engineering, correct? Okay, but didn't like the work. So you found an alternative in farming. I would encourage you in this room to go visit this guy. You will be blown away with what he's doing in Metter, Georgia, in these containers that go up and down the highway. These containers that are pulled up and down I-16 that we get behind and get frustrated because it won't get over. He's using those to grow vegetables in. It will blow you. Heidi, when you start, what year did the Innovation Center start? October 20, 4 years ago. And how many businesses did you start with 4 years ago? No, you started with zero. No, you started with zero. Yeah. You started with zero. So how many businesses do you have? Are you supporting today? How many? 116? 60 businesses? And how many employees do those businesses have? All that tells you people is what vision and concern for a situation will do when good people sit down and start thinking and planning. Pretty cool deal. Pretty cool deal. Thank you. Great presentation. Our next presentation is a guy that I've known for a long time, and where's the big guy at? Oh, the big guy, Bill. How can I miss Bill Worthington, who is a teacher at Georgia Technical College in the agribusiness program. So, Bill, if you would please come forward.
I do. My name is Bill Worthington. I have the privilege of teaching agribusiness at Georgia Tech. Agriculture is big business in Georgia, and agriculture is agribusiness. The first statistics that work. 1 in 7 Georgians work in agribusiness, agriculture. forestry or related fields. The 2022 information says that there were 323,300 ag jobs in Georgia. My job is to give students the skills and knowledge to get these jobs. Now, some of these jobs are working for themselves. Some of them are working for other people. But some of the courses that I teach agronomy. I teach finance and credit. One of the classes that the students kind of hate too, but it's necessary to get the money to do their agriculture. Farm management, farm organization, agronomy, leadership. I teach survey of the animal industry, which is really intro to animal science. We have a lot of students that are not farm kids, that were not raised in agriculture, but are interested in it. That's what they want to make their career. So some of them, know more about different aspects of agriculture than I do, and some of them don't know any. Several years ago, we got a USDA grant to purchase this tractor. It's a 6110R equipped with Greenstar. One of the things that I spend a lot of time doing is teaching technology with students that are not ag kids that are going home to work on their family farm. A lot of them, the entry level position for agriculture is an equipment operator. So we spend a lot of time. This is state of the art. That's what a lot of the farmers have in our area, and teach them how to use all this technology. We also have other equipment of various sizes. We get to. I've got a slide a little bit later about a demonstration plot that many of them. One of the things that's kind of an enjoyable class that I teach is equipment use, and we have kids that I teach them to hook up to a trailer, to back up a trailer, and some of that's a little bit comical, but they leave there with, when they leave our program, they have actual in the seat time on this equipment. Where they can go to a job interview and say, yes, I have actually operated this equipment. We have different levels of proficiency, but we do spend a lot of time getting them to where they are proficient in using this equipment. We have a state-of-the-art, almost new building, the Jack Hill building. That's where my office and my classroom and my equipment lab is. We've got an air-conditioned lab that we can put the big tractor in. I've just finished teaching classes this summer, and as y'all know what the weather was, keep their attention and teach them a lot more things in the air conditioning than you can out in the 100-degree weather. We have a demonstration plot that is adjacent to, is kind of right in the middle of the campus. Right next to the Coca-Cola plant. We have about an acre and a half. We teach them to mow, we teach them to plant, we teach them to set their A/B lines on the Greenstar, and teach them move pallets and stuff around before. It's just the things that they're going to be doing should they get a job with agriculture. We also have a lot of scholarships, which comes in handy for a lot of the students that are not farm kids that are looking for a way to get the money to get the training that they want. That's just some of the scholarships that we have. I'll be around today if y'all have any other questions. We are currently registering for fall semester. This fall, I'm teaching finance and credit, agronomy, survey the animal industry, and also teaching an equipment class. That we have things like backhoe, several tractors, trucks, that we have all the students learn how to operate this equipment. And it's popular class. We restricted 25, and I think I've got 24 students in it as of today. But I'll be glad to entertain any questions. Thank y'all.
The big tractor that you showed up there to us. How many computers are in that tractor? So my point of all that, you gotta have a pretty good knowledge of technology in today's world to be a farmer. And you can get it at a get you technical college. Thank you. We got our next speaker, is a great guy. I don't know what else I can say other than that, but he was a senator for a good many years, and he really helped me out a lot and mentored me. And he spends a good bit of time on the road. And Commissioner Tyler Harper, will you come forward, please? Thank you.
Well, good morning. Billy, I appreciate you adjusting the microphone. You just put it a little too low. But that's okay. I'm not quite that short. I am short. I know I'm short. But it's good to be back in Statesboro. Good to be back in Bullitt County. Good to be with all of you. Thank y'all for what y'all are doing, especially in regards to this conversation around agriculture and specifically around protecting one of the most valuable resources when it comes to agriculture. It's kind of hard to have prosperity in agriculture if you don't have somewhere to do it. Farmland is critical to that. So it's good to see all of you. Thank you for what y'all do for our state. Thank you for our partnerships together. I look forward to our continued work together in ensuring that our state continues to be successful in using agriculture to do that. So I'm just honored to be here, honored to be in Statesboro, like I said, and back in a real strong ag community, which is Bullitt County, as all of you know that. So this morning, some of this has already been said, so I'm not going to repeat some things that have been said, but I'm going to kind of just set the stage a little bit. I know we talk about this a lot, but I think it's important to put it in perspective. Agriculture is our #1 industry, period. Agriculture is the backbone of our state's economy. It's what we do well. It's what Georgia has always done well. It's allowed our state to prosper. We're the #1 producer in the country of broilers and chicken. As a matter of fact, if we were our own nation, Georgia would be the 8th largest producer of chicken in the world, which is amazing by ourselves. We're the #1 producer of pecans. As I like to say, we're also the #1 producer of pecans. We're the #1 producer of peanuts. Matter of fact, over 50% of the peanuts produced in America are produced right here in the borders of the great state of Georgia. Now, my good friend, some of you have heard me say this before, but my good friend Rick Pate over in Alabama, he and his marketing team have got quite good at their marketing for Alabama products, and they were marketing Alabama peanuts, and they said that 50% of the peanuts produced in America are produced within 100 miles of Dothan, Alabama. Anytime I like to hit on Alabama, I do that from time to time. I told Rick I'm glad that Georgia is contributing to Alabama's success once again. but we're proud of that. You know, we're proud of what we do. We're the #1 producer of Vidalia onions because it's the only place you can produce a Vidalia onion, which is pretty amazing, right? We're the #1 forestry state in the nation. I think that's cool. Matter of fact, when it comes to land ownership, Georgia holds the status of being the state that has the most land in private ownership of any state in the union. So that means more land in our state is privately held than any other state in the nation. I think that's cool. That's something that we should be proud of as a state. You know, we're #2 in watermelon, 2 or 3 in blueberries and peaches, depending upon the year. But agriculture is important to who we are. We grow over 300 different commodities, and I really, truly, Georgia is the apples to zucchini state of agriculture. We are agriculture is our backbone. It's what we do well. We do it. We do a lot here in our state, a lot more so than a lot of other states do, and we're really proud of the economy that is agriculture. But it's not just agriculture. It's all the other industries that are connected to what make agriculture successful. It's transportation, it's logistics, it's real estate, it's lawyers, it's bankers, it's ag lending. There are a lot of things that go into allowing our ag industry to be successful in the state. And we can't lose sight of that because we've got to have all of that. People think that ag is just cows, plows, and sows, like I say quite regular, but it's way more than that. Agriculture isn't just cows, plows, and sows. Agriculture is a significant economic engine for the state of Georgia and has allowed our state to succeed. And at the Department of Agriculture, we do everything we can every day to help make that happen. Whether it's through our over 70,000 different licenses that we issue every single year. You know, this year we're celebrating the 150th anniversary of the Department of Agriculture. So the Georgia Department of Agriculture has been around for 150 years, promoting and protecting our agricultural industry and ensuring our farmers and producers can be successful and that our consumers can be safe. We work every single day to protect this $84 billion industry that's 17% of our state's economy. Almost 17% of Georgia's economy is tied to agriculture. That's amazing. That's huge. That's big. And I think that's why it's here. It's for those 43,000 farms across the state, the almost 10 million acres of Georgia land that is currently held and farmed. But I think there's a lot of misconception when it comes to agriculture. The average farm size in our state is only about 230 or 40 acres. You know, you hear a lot about these talks about large farms and large corporate farms, but when you get down really to it, the average farm size is quite small in the grand scheme of things when you're looking at 230 to 240 acres. So we're talking about small farmers and large farmers. So that makes up the whole economy of the ag sector. And I think it's important that we look at it through that lens, so we ensure that all of agriculture is included. But obviously there's other statistics that are concerning. The average age of a Georgia farmer is almost 60 years old now. Those are things that we've got to look at, and through Mr. Worthington, through programs like yours, we can educate our new and beginning farmers, hopefully, and give them opportunities to be successful. But in that, they're facing a lot of issues. Whether you're a new or beginning farmer or you're a current farmer, there are a ton of issues facing agriculture right now. This list is not exhaustive. It's just a short list, actually, of issues we see in agriculture every single day. Labor is a significant issue. Right now, Georgia fruit and vegetable farmers and others that are in the H-2A program today are paying $150 million more today than they were 2 years ago to get H-2A labor in the state of Georgia. $150 million. That comes out of the bottom line of farmers' pockets in Georgia all across the state. Labor issues are huge. We've got to work on those problems. We don't talk about the fact, in my opinion, that agriculture is national security enough. Agriculture is national security, period. Protecting the food, fiber, and shelter that we all rely on every single day is vital. It's important that we do that because if we can't feed ourselves, we can't protect ourselves. We've got to be able to do that. And I think when we look through the lens of national security, when it comes to ag policy from the City Hall to the White House, we'll put the right policies in place that allows us to be successful. In America, just to be blunt about it, we have an unlevel playing field on the world stage when it comes to the ag economy. Our farmers and our producers don't compete on a fair playing field when it comes to agriculture, the agriculture sector. And there's things that we've got to do to address that. There's things that we've got to do to ensure that our farmers and producers are competing on that level playing field. You shouldn't be able to buy one piece of equipment across the border in Mexico and not be able to buy that same piece of equipment in America. That's not a fair playing field for our farmers, for our producers. We've got to continue to work on that. We've got to have farm policy and ag policy that makes sense. Right now, I know we're in the middle of this current farm bill, and unfortunately, I'm not real sure where we're going to end up. I'm kind of concerned about it. I'll just be honest with you. But farm policy and ag policy that makes sense at the farm level to ensure that our farmers and our producers can be successful. And right now, we're kind of uncertain where that may be. And that uncertainty in ag policy and that uncertainty in farm policy doesn't bode well for us being able to make future decisions when it relates to our agricultural production and our farms when we're making those individual decisions on farms all over the state. The declining retail dollar back to the family farm is a huge issue. It's declined by 50% since 1980, 20% in the last 10 years. Those are statistics going the wrong direction. And the less and less of the retail dollar we get back to the family farm, the more difficult it makes it for that farm operation to be successful. A pair of jeans today, depends on where you shop. They're either $70, $50, or $150. I don't know where y'all shop at. I like to buy Wranglers, and they're around $70, which is okay. But regardless of what jean you buy, it's about the same amount of cotton in it, whether you pay $70 for them or $150 for them. But only about $1.50 of that actually makes it back to the farm that grew the cotton that made the jeans that you put on. Those are statistics that are concerning. That means we're going the wrong direction. Just this morning, I was looking at the markets. Most of you know, every cotton farmer in here knows where it's at. 69-cent cotton don't make sense. What was it, Russ? 63 cent in 1970. Is that right? 1977, cotton was 63 cent, 69 cent today. But all of y'all know that a tractor back then doesn't cost what a tractor does today. A truck back then doesn't cost what a truck does today. A bag of cottonseed sure don't cost what it did back then, what it does today. Those are issues that we've got to continue to find. And you can roll that into inflation and increased input cost. Inflation today, not only is it affecting our Georgia farmers and producers, but it's affecting Georgia families. In the last 4 years, inflation's cost Georgia families over $11,500 right here in our state. But we're seeing those costs on the farm too, through seed, feed, fertilizer, you name it. Those are issues that we're facing. Low commodity prices. I just kind of mentioned that just a second ago. Mental health is actually a crisis we're seeing in agriculture today. And I think a lot of that is tied to a lot of these issues we're talking about. Because you can do everything right on the farm. You can do everything perfect on the farm. At the end of the day, you can still lose everything. And it causes those struggles in mental health. In the last 12 months, farmers, over 40% of farmers have considered suicide. That was a study done by the University of Georgia Mercer Health, DBHDD, in partnership with us at the Department of Agriculture. Those are concerning statistics. We've got to work on that. And I know what we're here to talk about today is farmland. Loss of viable ag land is an issue as well. It's a concern. I get asked all the time, what are your major concerns when it comes to agriculture? I talk about a lot of these that are on this slide, but loss of ag land is one of those things that we definitely talk about, and we've got to find a way to ensure that we're successful. At the end of the day, I think it's summed up with this. In agriculture, we're asked to do more with less every single day. We want you to produce more peanuts, more cotton, more beef on the hoof, more lamb on the chop, more pork on the side. We want you to put more wood in a tree. We want you to do all of that, but we want you to do it with less water, less seed, less fertilizer, less chemicals. We want you to do it with less land. We want you to do it with less everything. That's the struggle that the American farmer, the Georgia farmer is tasked with. And our friends and our research institutions at the University of Georgia, at Fort Valley State, and others are tasked with every single day. That's the question that they have to figure out. How do we do that? But at some point, the more with less doesn't work anymore. At some point, you got to have a certain amount of land. You got to have a certain amount of viable production capability to make it work to feed the populace. You know, we've talked about the growing population. That's concerning too, even from a food perspective. We got to have more food production to be able to feed a growing population. And if we're not able to do it right here at home in our own borders, that means we become more reliant on other people to do it for us. That means we import more of our food here in America, which means we become less safe because we become more dependent on others to do it for us than we do for ourselves. And it's important that we keep that in mind as we move forward in talking about this issue. I think it's important when you look at that. One thing that I didn't mention, and I'll mention really quick, farm income, I believe this year is estimated to be down about 25%. I think a couple of weeks ago in Congress, they had a hearing on farm income and the issues on the farm. And one of the things that were brought up is that net farm revenue is going to be the highest ever. What they don't talk about is net farm expenses. You have to talk about net farm expenses when you talk about net farm revenue, because if you're not talking about the expense side of the equation, it don't make real much sense. So net farm revenue may be up, but our expenses are up too. And that percentage is getting smaller and smaller every year of how we make it work on the farm and in the ag sector. So that's just a couple of issues. Talking about viable farmland, I know Catherine has already kind of mentioned some of this, and I appreciate the work that they do at the Georgia Conservancy. The partnership we have at the Department of Ag with them and the American Farmland Trust has been great over the last year and a half or so since I've been commissioner, and I look forward to our continued work together as we build out in protecting ag land. But we have seen ag loss in Georgia. She mentioned that a few minutes ago, but right now we're on a trend in our state by 2040 to lose about 750,000 more acres in the current trend that we're on right now in ag land in our state. That's concerning. That's concerning to me as the commissioner. I think it should be concerning to all Georgians too. When you get to thinking about larger populations, more food production, less land to do it on means we got to become more reliable on others to do it for us or get really innovative in our technology that we have. So those are things I think we really got to look at as we move forward. And I think through innovation, we can work on that. We can ensure that we're more successful with less, but at some point, like I said a minute ago, I think those lines cross. So we've got to be careful about how we do that. So looking at land loss is a real issue in our state. But we've been working to do a few things about it here at home. And I want to say I'm very grateful for the folks that are here this morning from the General Assembly and others across the state, and even our House members that are here this morning. Representative Franklin, it's good to see you. The work that we've done together to protect farmland in our state already, I think it's important that we point that out. Last year, Senator Goodman and Representative Dickey carried the Georgia Farmland Conservation Act. It established a conservation fund within the Department of Agriculture this year. They funded it at about $2 million, which gives us the ability to attract federal dollars to help fund that. So I want to thank the members of the General Assembly, the Lieutenant Governor, the Speaker, the Governor, for their help on getting this done. I think this is going to go a long way in helping us start preserving our farmland. A number of other states already do this. Florida has been very successful in their program over the last few years in protecting ag land for ag purposes. And we're going to work to do that here. We're in the process of getting those rules established. Hopefully those rules will be out here in the next week or so. And we hope to start our first meetings in September for the Farmland Conservation Fund as we get that kicked off and working to start protecting ag land here in the state of Georgia. This is going to go a long way to help that. I know Senator Beach mentioned this earlier, but Senate Bill 420, which was carried this past year, Senator Anna Vitarte and everybody on this panel were a big part of this as well. I think working toward protecting our land for our purposes here at home is just as important as is everything else we're talking about. So ensuring that Georgia farmland, it can't be used or bought or owned by our foreign adversaries is important. That's a step in helping protect us in a national security perspective. And that's what Senate Bill 420 does. And I appreciate their work on that. And I appreciate their partnership in that. And I think, these are those type of things that can help us move the ball in the right direction to ensure that we're protecting agriculture, that we're protecting our farmland, that we're protecting Georgia ag to protect ourselves, as I said a minute ago. So how can we continue moving in this direction? I think there's a lot we can talk about. I've kind of hit on a few of those already this morning. But how do we protect agriculture in Georgia? Well, first, we encourage participation in those conservation programs. There's a lot of those out there. Many of you that are in the ag community are very familiar with a lot of those conservation programs that are out there. I think we've got to encourage that. I think we've got to find ways to continue to build out our Georgia Conservation Ag Land Conservation Fund, continue to invest in that, put funds in that and needed resources there so we can continue to be successful. I think it's important to incentivize agriculture land for agriculture purposes. I think we got to have a serious conversation about that. I think at the end of the day, it is vital and is important to have an exceptional business economy here in the state of Georgia and business development here in the state of Georgia. But we can coexist with smart development. I think it's on down later on the list, but with smart development growth plans, we can coexist together. Agriculture and future innovation and future business growth in our state can coexist. We can be successful together if we work together and ensure that those policies make sense, that we have zoning policies on the local level that make sense. If we have statewide tax policy that allow our farmers to be successful. If we work toward easing tax burden on Georgia producers, many of you probably know some of the largest landowners in our state are farmers. They own a great deal or a great majority of the land that we have in our state. And I think smart tax policies and helping them in those regards are important. We can promote our Georgia agriculture industry through our Georgia Grown program. We can use things like the Georgia Grown Innovation Center we have in Metter and the one that's actually about to go up in Albany, Georgia, Senator Sims, that we're putting in Albany, Georgia, to help incentivize those individuals and their agricultural interest in moving the ball in the right direction and have more grants and more opportunities like that gives us the opportunity to be more successful. We've got to have smart ag policy and smart safety net programs that just make sense to allow our industry to be successful. I think at the end of the day, it's important that we find a way to ensure that our ag industry and our farmers can be successful at home. I think one of the things that we've got to look at, as I said a minute ago, bridging that farm to fork divide is important. One of the things I've talked about with the governor and our economic development team here in our state is we do a really good job in Georgia when it comes to agriculture. We do a phenomenal job in our state. We do a really good job of producing a good raw commodity. It's the number one industry. It's the backbone of our economy. Why don't we focus more on finding ways and bringing those industries and those businesses that can take that raw product to a finished good that the consumer can use and incentivize those businesses here in our state? I think we have an opportunity to do that. I think that is a wide open opportunity. We've seen some of that latched on here in the last year or so where in Georgia, most of our dairy was being sent out of state and being brought back in to being served to our students in our schools. We're going to have a new dairy facility opening very soon in the Valdosta community, which is going to produce more dairy products for our use right here in our own borders. It's those type of things that we can do to ensure that agriculture is successful, but we also do that by using agriculture. We can create those local jobs that we need. By using agriculture, we can continue to ensure that our rural economies are successful because agriculture is the success of the rural economy. And when you look at our state, though, we're all tied together. We talk about this. That there's two Georgias, right? A lot of times we hear that there's a metro Georgia and there's a rural Georgia, but I disagree. We're one Georgia, and the reason we're one Georgia is because of agriculture. Agriculture is what brings our state together. And when you look at farm gate value and you look at consumption rates, when you look at farm gate value in rural Georgia, obviously that chart's fairly high. When you look at farm gate value in urban Georgia, that chart's fairly low. But when you look at consumption rate, the chart identically flips, which goes to show just in that chart alone, it proves that we're connected, that we are dependent upon each other to be successful. And if agriculture isn't successful, our developed parts of the state won't be successful either. So we have got to work together. We've got to find ways that we can continue to be successful, and we can use economic development to do that and use our ag industry to continue to move it in the right direction. I'll kind of wrap up with this and talking about moving the ball in the right direction, whether it's innovation, CAE, I think, is a great opportunity that we can continue to explore. But I think when it comes down to the nitty gritty of it, we've got to find ways to ensure that our farmers are successful. Local farmer back home, who I'm good friends with, he's been in the ag industry for a very, very, very long time. And I think he summed it up pretty well in something that he put out on social media just this week. And he's been in the ag sector, I don't know, probably 60 plus years. And I think he sums it up well, because what we've seen in lately is we're not incentivizing our individuals in the agriculture sector to stay in the ag sector. They're being incentivized to do something else with their land when they want to stay in the agricultural production field. But at the end of the day, they've got to make a tough decision as a family. Can we continue to survive? And I think when those choices are being made and presented to those farmers and producers across our state, I think we got to be honest with ourselves. They're given an unlevel opportunity. On one hand, they got to make a decision of what's best for their family and how they can best survive and ensure that they continue to be successful. And there may be some big development project that may be coming in their area, and there may be a lot of opportunity for them to take care of their family for generations if they take hold of that. But why shouldn't the same scale be equal for them in the ag sector? Why shouldn't they be able to put the sweat on their brow and go out and work the land every single day like they love and still be able to be just as successful? Because right now we're in a pretty difficult spot. And I think he sums it up like this: farm folks should not be expected to work themselves and their families to death for very little or no return, or losing equity that they've worked all their life for. I think he sums it up well. And I can't think of it any better way than what he just said. We got to ensure that agriculture is successful. We do that by making farm families successful. The farm family is the backbone of who we are. The farm family is the backbone of America. The farm family is what has allowed us as a nation, as a community, as a state to be successful every single day. And I think we can do that. But we've got to give them the opportunity to be successful in their farms. And I look forward to ways that we can do that together. I look forward to our opportunities and working together through all of this and allowing us to be successful, allowing agriculture to be successful. And I think we can do it through smart, innovative, very targeted approaches, through smart development, through smart opportunity, through smart policy that allows us to be successful. And I look forward to our continued partnership in making that happen. I appreciate y'all looking at this. I appreciate you digging in this. It's been an honor to be with you. As I always say, thank you. Keep plowing. Good to see y'all.
First off, thank you, Commissioner. You bring passion to that job, and we appreciate all you do. In Arkansas, Sarah Huckabee took an inventory of their property that was owned by foreign adversaries, and then through eminent domain, they took them back from the Communist Chinese Party. Are we looking, do we know what land is owned by foreign adversaries?
So, Senator Beach, to your point, we're actually working on that. I actually had this summer, I've had a great intern from the University of Georgia who I've actually kind of helped. He's kind of helped me with that a little bit. I've kind of tasked him with some of that. We're definitely digging into that to see. I know that the bill that was just passed, there is a provision in that particular legislation that deals with clawback, so to speak. So we are definitely, that's something that we're looking into. We know that they're here. Matter of fact, as most of you know that are on this panel, maybe not everybody in the room, the Department of Ag and our law enforcement unit worked with a local sheriff's office a couple of months ago in relation to a food processing facility that turned out to not be a food processing facility, that turned out to be a marijuana grow operation. And we seized $25 million worth of marijuana in this operation that was owned by Chinese nationals. Everybody that worked in this facility were all Chinese individuals. Matter of fact, the person that owned the property, we took out warrants for his arrest, but he skipped country before we could get him in custody. So he's back in China, as far as we know, and we'll probably never see him. But we know that it's happening. I mean, that's a perfect example of why it's important that we focus on this and work to address that issue.
One final question. Can you just touch a little bit on what you think the the role technology will play in the future on agriculture?
Oh, yeah. And I probably should have talked about that a little more, but I think in technology is going to play a big role in agriculture, whether it's CAE, controlled environment agriculture, or it's new innovations like AI. I think for all of those in the room that are in ag, I know there's 3 different AIs in agriculture. We have artificial insemination, artificial intelligence, and we have avian influenza. So you have to be clear what AI you're talking about when you talk AI in ag. But this AI I'm talking about is artificial intelligence. I think there is a place for that. The precision ag farm that's going in Perry that the University of Georgia is working on, I think will help us showcase that new technology and continue to invest in our research in that particular area. But it's going to play a big role in our success and allowing ag to be successful. But as I stated earlier, through innovation, we can only grow so many peanuts under the dirt. Through innovation, we can only put so much corn on a stalk before that stalk's going to fall over. We can only put so many cucumbers on a vine, right? Senator Watson, I mean, there comes a breaking point. You still are going to have a certain amount of viable land to be able to produce and have that production. Senator, yes, sir.
First, thanks for being here. I always admire all the work you're doing, Commissioner Tyler. But in particular on security, and I don't want to, be repetitive on that, but do want to call attention to, I think, a couple of things. You know how I am. Sometimes I'll just make a policy statement and people can go with it where they want. But as you mentioned, in terms of the conservation fund, I mean, I do hope that the Senate, the General Assembly, supports your efforts, the other leaders' efforts to, accelerate finding funding, for that fund for the protection of land. I know we continue to have the debate in the legislature over housing and, developers, investors coming, and, that's kind of a separate conversation. But I know in my part of the state, I've really pushed our county commissioners and cities, city leaders, and even private citizens to think, fast forward in terms of accelerating what do we need to do to protect land, protect parkland, protect forestry from the Cobb, Paulding County line all the way to Alabama. And some of those tenants that, I know there people are experiencing in this community all the way down to the Florida-Georgia border, or even greater significance because of population loss. And so as we sit here, and I know, Commissioner, you've talked about this, and, Chairman Goodman behind me, as that population loss continues, these farmers, the tax burden, which I assume nobody in here likes paying taxes, right? Okay, especially right now, right? That burden is all on those families. And as fewer people are living in some of these counties, I mean, there's becoming a question of, viability, from a legal perspective all the way to the financial perspective. And you're leaving it to, a few hundred families in some cases, basically holding, these government bodies up on the backs of their farms. And so I think when we talk about, the future of, incentives and things like that, to ease the tax burden, I know it's been a big conversation, for the timber commodity in their industry and others, that those conversations, even though they're going to be very difficult, they're held transparently, and they do happen for the sake of Georgia, because I do think it impacts our place, not just in the U.S. economy, but in the global economy, as you mentioned. And I will also make one comment. I mean, being a former city council member, I don't know that in my lifetime I've ever seen anything, not to take a dig at your slide, but smart growth. I don't know any development that's been quote unquote smart, not that's perfect. But I do agree that there needs to be a greater emphasis of public partnerships, because the government is not going to solve all the problems, but we do need to protect our way of life, our way of family, families in this state, to ensure that the next generation we're able to put food on the table. And that we also fund and support your security requests going forward too, because of the food supply threats that we're seeing from a global perspective that I know you and I have talked about with our friends in Washington. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
That's me. Y'all, I always tell everybody, Tyler and I, we're pretty close. We've
fraternity brother and been friends a long time. I tell people he's the more polished version of me. But one of the things I appreciate about Tyler and love about Tyler is I say some things sometimes that can make folks feel uncomfortable, but I believe them to be the truth. And sometimes those kind of things need to be said, right, Tyler?
Amen.
And Tyler never he lets me be me, and I appreciate that. But I want to thank you for what you said about when we talk about farmland preservation and we talk about food security. Y'all, the average rate of return on farms in the United States today is 2%. Most all the farmers you know could sell everything they've got and pay the capital gains taxes on it and take what was left and put it in CDs and make more money sitting on their butts than they do borrowing $1 million, $3 million a year at 8.5% interest trying to make a crop. And our country is hypocritical in our farm policy because we tell our farmers we expect you to grow your crops under certain environmental, emission, and labor regulations. We expect that of you because we say that's what we believe in. That's our core beliefs. But then we turn right around and we let countries that don't grow their products under the same set of standards come in here and put the American farmer out of business. That's what we do. And so if you're a climate change person and you're all about global warming and all that kind of stuff, well, Tier 4 engines, all this stuff coming from Mexico, they don't have to use Tier 4 engines, but they bring it into the United States. Farmers here have been the biggest tax increase on rural America in my lifetime. Adds $50,000 to the purchase price of every tractor with 200 horsepower, right? We're important. 67.11%, Tyler, of the world's ammonium nitrate comes from Russia and Ukraine. We're putting urea in these engines. If you say you believe in labor standards, we say in the United States, farmers now through the H2A program are paying nearly $15 an hour in supplying housing and everything else. But yet, we're going to let the products come in from Mexico where they pay $1.50 an hour. So when you look at people like my boys, your girls, the biggest threat to farmland preservation and to the family farm and to agriculture and to food security is the fact that the kids coming along today can't make a living at it. That's where we're at. Corporate consolidation, overregulation, and unfair trade. Those are your three things that are facing the American farmer. You now have 4 corporations that process 85% of the beef to them are foreign owned. You have 4 corporations that control 85% of the corn seed market, 4 corporations that control 76% of the soybean seed market. And we saw what happened in the pork industry in Georgia. In 1992, Georgia was the 6th largest hog producing state in the nation. And then the integrators came about, Murphy, Carroll, and Prestige, and Smithfield. And they got all the hogs under their umbrella, at least in terms of the processing and marketing. And then Smithfield starts buying out their competitors one by one until they've got 80% control in the processing and marketing. And then they sell to the Chinese. And that's your food security. And so I don't know what we do to go about fixing that, Mr. Commissioner, but that is something that when we talk about farmland preservation, you have to make the best financial decisions for your family. When somebody comes in and wants to pay $20,000 an acre for your land, and things keep going on, the average age of a farmer is 60 years old. We've got to get farm policy that works, and on both sides of the aisle, we've got to support the American farmer because the American farmer feels like this country's left behind. And I appreciate you telling the truth, Tyler.
Thank you. Thank you, Rose. Well, yes. Anybody else? Yes. Concise. Okay. So Senator Hickman, for those of you that don't know, H2A, H2B, they're two different programs. H2A is the agriculture version of the worker visa program, where we bring in those from out of our country to come here to work specifically in agriculture. H2B is the same, but for businesses. Obviously, on the agriculture side, we're really interested in the H2A program. What we've seen in H2A in the last couple of years, the increase in cost has been significant. It's been really unfair to our Georgia producers. I said that a minute ago, $150 million additional cost in H2A just on Georgia farmers in the last 2 years. That's a lot of money coming out of the ag sector going to labor. But it's vital. It's important. I know. I think Senator Watson can speak to this way better than I can, because he deals with this day in and day out. But I'll tell you from my experience, and even though I don't use any H2A labor, but I know a lot of farmers that do. One in particular, this has been about 2 or 3 years ago. They were a little late on getting their H2A labor help to their farm to help them with some harvesting. So they rented buses, 50 passenger buses. 2 of them, I think 2 or 3 of them. They sent them to town, a couple of the cities around their farm. They sent them to the labor finders areas. They sent them anywhere that they thought they could find some help. And they basically said, look, this is what we're paying. It was 15 or 20. I can't remember what it was. It was not bad money per hour. Load up on this bus. We'll take you out to the farm and y'all can work. They did that. It was at least a week or so before their H2A labor got there. And so over almost 70% of the folks that got on that bus every morning were gone before lunch. Now, how in the world they found a ride from the farm back to town, but couldn't find a ride from town to the farm? I hadn't figured that out yet. But the fact that over half of the folks that showed up to work decided to leave and go somewhere else, I think is in and of itself the reason we've got to have a farm labor program here that makes sense. Yes, we've got to secure our border. Yes, we've got to ensure that we're protecting America and we're protecting who we are, but at the same time, we've got to have smart policies that allows our ag sector to be successful at the same time. I know they're working on some things in DC, but we got a lot of work to do. And a lot of what we talked about today, unfortunately, we can solve some of this on the state level, but it takes federal policy to make real change in the ag sector. And I know many of you on this panel, Sam and Russ and I, specifically, we've been to DC multiple times to advocate on behalf of Georgia producers and Georgia farmers in trying to get the right ag policy to allow us to be successful, both from a national security perspective as well as allowing our farm families to be successful here at the home. As we've said, it's the backbone of who we are. It's the backbone of our economy. Without agriculture, we can't be successful as communities, as state, or as a nation. And it's an honor to serve as your commissioner of ag. It's an honor to serve along with all of y'all. It's been an honor to be with y'all this morning. Thank y'all for having me. God bless you. Y'all keep plowing. Good to be here.
I think everybody would agree that we have had a great group of speakers today. Very informative. I'm very, very impressed. One thing, just kind of a funny thing, I think about Grant Anderson. I forgot to say this a while ago. His logo on the side of his delivery truck is from farm to fork. Most people say from farm to table. His is farm to fork. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. I think we. And first of all, before the speakers get out here, we got well, one person signed up. Before the speakers get out here, we want to get a picture of all the speakers and our committee members. We've got a little bit of time left. We've got one person signed up, Lawton Sachs. So Lawton, we got 3 or 4 minutes. Is that okay? Okay. Yeah. And anybody else? Does anybody else want to speak that has not signed up? Oh, Lord, have mercy. Why didn't you sign up? We asked you to. Right there. Right there. Okay. Let me. We had promised everybody we'd be out here at 12:30, so we may just, instead of giving 3 minutes, we may give everybody 2 minutes. Thank y'all. Oh, is that okay? Well, we were scared if we took a break that we'd lose people. Okay, if y'all will sit down, we're going to get started. Two, three, four, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, we got eight speakers, and so if you would, please be cognizant of everybody's time. You know, it's lunchtime and all that, so be cognizant. We're gonna give everybody 3 minutes, okay, and we're gonna hold you to 3 minutes. Okay, thank you. Lord.
I asked for Tyler Harper's next class. All right, is that better? Okay. My name is Lawton Sag. I was born and raised here in Bullitt County. I've dedicated the last 2 decades of my life of speaking up for the voiceless people here in Bullitt County, whether it's the homeless population, whether it's farmers, whether it's the citizens of Bullitt County. Over the last 2 years, there has been a great disconnect between the citizens, especially here in this county, and the elected officials, both at the local level and those in Atlanta and DC. And so we have been ramping up our efforts to try to be a conduit between the citizens and these elected officials. What we are finding is that for the most part, the elected officials do not want to hear our voices. We are limited in the amount of time, again, this afternoon, and the amount of time that we can speak. We are always put at the end of the program after other people have spoken. And I can tell you, I'm so thankful, Commissioner Harper, Dr. Aslan, Ms. Moore, for speaking the truth. A lot of the things that Commissioner Harper and these other two spoke on today, we have been told by elected officials, we don't know what we are talking about. But they shared the data and they shared the goals that we have been taking to our elected officials. And I'm glad y'all came to Bullitt County first, because we are the home of a lot of contradictions. We've got somebody that's over the Water Council who's also over the Development Authority for Bullitt County. There is a conflict of interest there. We have one of the most pro-development state senators now chairing the Farmland Preservation Committee. We've got problems because the people are not being listened to. We are shut down and our voices are not being heard. Here in Bullitt County, we got rid of 3 county commissioners that would not listen to us. We're working on a 4th. We have a farmer in the name of Ryan Brandon who has been fighting for the farmers here, and he came here today. And I can tell you, there are hundreds of farmers that wish they could be here, but it will set at a time when they're out in their fields working. We have all these things that Commissioner Harper wants to do, and we've been asking for these. We want our ag land to remain ag land. 99% of the developments here in Bullitt County have been placed on agricultural land, Ag 5 designation. We are losing farmland. Every time you come to Bullitt County, you're going to see a different Bullitt County. I hope y'all keep coming back and seeing what's happening here in Bullitt County. The tax burden, it is so great here in Bullitt County. It's continuing to go up. These farmers need you to fight for them. This isn't just about national security.
It's not just about solar farm. It's about listening to these stakeholders here in Bullock County and all across the state of Georgia. And I tell you, people want their voices heard. This isn't a time for photo ops, for going on tours of farms. It is listening to people. Lunch can wait, the tour can wait. These people deserve the right to be heard on all of these. And we are crying out for a smart growth plan. Go and look at what Bullock County does. We don't have the infrastructure here. They're taking our water. They're taking almost 10 million gallons a day and giving it to a planet. Listen, we are not afraid to run people for office that are going to listen. We're not afraid to run against people that have gotten comfortable in office. We are demanding what Commissioner Harper has demanded here this morning. Listen to us, put this into action, do it locally. I know people tell you in Atlanta, don't get involved in local politics. That's a load of horse crap, to use farm terminology. You need to get involved. If you believe this, go to your county commission meetings and stand up. If you're a farmer, fight for these locally, not just when you're on TV in Atlanta. Thank you.
Mr. George? George Killichek? There you go.
Good morning, everyone. George Killichek, Rockdale County, outside the great metro area of Atlanta, Georgia. The guy above put us not to be here to be ordinary, but to be extraordinary, and everybody in this room today is very extraordinary. Thank you very much. I'd like to say that I'm retired from the International Harvester Agricultural Corporation and American Honda Motor Company. I'm the chairperson for the Rockdale Soil Water Conservation District, which is one of 40 soil and water districts protecting your environment here in the state of Georgia. And we are funded through the Georgia Soil Water Conservation Commission and the Department of Agriculture. Approximately a year and a half ago, I attended the Senate Resolution 275 meeting in Atlanta, where Tyler Harper, Ag Commissioner, went to Burt Jones and said we needed to improve the agribusiness workforce and look at our curriculum. I'm happy to say if you would go to the Georgia Farm Monitor May 4th YouTube session, you'll see myself and another resident speaking of mental health. This information will also go to RFD TV across the United States. We had the first inaugural Agribusiness Career Day Expo in Rockdale County. We hosted 419 students and parents sharing over 300 plus agribusiness careers in Georgia via 39 industry professionals. From banking to Tim Lurimore, Georgia Forestry Commissioner, flew in on his own helicopter. Great stuff. Georgia Farm Bureau, DNR, EPD, Technical College System of Georgia was there. UGA, College of Ag and Economic Science, ABAC, FSU. We had planners, developers, Georgia Power, TJ Hudson from the Lieutenant Governor's Office was our guest speaker. We have a lot of things going on. The USDA, NRCS, FSA was there. Georgia Grown was our chief sponsor. Thank you very much, Tyler. And so all of this, you know, we asked why, but we have to be like Walt Disney. We have to dream this stuff. We were originally going to have 20 people come in for a lunch and learn. Next thing I know, we had 419 students. So if you can dream it, it can kind of come true. I'd just like to say that we have two other colleagues here today. Greg Ramsey from Village Habitat. He's going to share some excellent information on how to preserve farmland. I would encourage all of you to have my business cards here today, but just get in touch with me. I'll show you how to do this. And we're planning to have 10 of these agribusiness expos across the great state of Georgia. So Greg Ramsey, and then I have Emmanuel from Athens Farmland Trust.
together. There's a tremendous need for preserving the rural farms as well as making farming more economic. Those two things kind of go hand in hand. My name is Greg Ramsey. Our company is Village Habitat. We've been working for probably about 30 years on what we call conservation communities. Basically, looking at different ways to preserve land and channel or guide growth. I think that's the critical piece. Growth just happens, according to people's whims, pretty much. We don't guide growth very much. And as land becomes less and less available, that becomes more and more important. None of us really want to guide growth. We'd love growth just to be able to happen, but that doesn't work very long. So I start with 3 objectives. First one is to get more kids, young people interested in farming, and make it potentially profitable. Because without that, there's no farming future. The second one is, of course, to protect farmlands, because once the land is gone, it's not there anymore. And the third is to build relationship between farms and communities. This is, I think, really what we have lost. It's happened, a lot of it's happened because of modern technology, and I'm pro modern technology, but using it in ways that bring people and farms and communities together. The small town farms of yore don't exist like they used to. Farms are getting pushed out farther and farther from small towns, mostly because of a fast rate of subdivision of lands around small towns. Schools kind of get disconnected, education processes get disconnected from farms, and consumption gets disconnected. The farms export more, to a certain extent. So we just don't have that connection as much as we used to. So those are the 3. So let's go to planning. So in an ideal world, farms would be for farming. And in a lot of places in the world, particularly countries that are smaller, that's what farms are. That you don't get farms and residential development. The residential development is limited to future family members. That's always been. So into the future generations, family members can keep farming, and farm workers. But the idea that somebody can commercially subdivide farmland is in direct competition with the preservation ordinance. And so, how do you deal with that? It's difficult because farmers need help. They need help economically. So, the best policy is probably just to make it ag and also incentivize ag tourism. There are a lot of there's money to be made through ag tourism. There's money to be made through value-added products. All of that sector. Once you allow farms to become residential subdivisions, then one good tool, and it's slightly complicated, but it's being used effectively, is the transfer of development rights. So basically, the whole idea is to guide growth where it should be, which is where infrastructure is, not spread out across farms, crossroads, and things of that sort. That's where you set up your small towns. That's where the future lodging for the EV plants and so on goes, in towns, not spread out across the countryside. People can walk to things and then preserve the countryside around the small towns. So people can actually walk outside the town, go to diversified vegetable farms and things like that, keep the larger farms farther back.
Manuel Stone. Give everybody 4 minutes.
interest. I have a couple just things that I want to tell folks about. First off, just want to say thank you to everyone for being in the room, and it's an important conversation. And I find listening to folks, I'd love to have an ongoing conversation with each of you. But some of the reasons that I came today, we engage in conservation. We have 21,000 acres in conservation easement. Most of those are working lands here in Georgia. We can reduce your tax burden, for example, through working with partners like NRCS to keep your land in farming. You can put that into a conservation easement, and it's one tool that you can use to reduce your costs on an annual basis. So we also have a land matching service called GeorgiaFarmLink.org. So if you have some land that you would like people to farm on, we would love you to list your website. It's not for profit, but we will help find you someone to lease from you. We're not looking to help facilitate land sales or anything like that. We're trying to keep land in farming. Those are the two things I wanted to tell you about. I guess I'd add a third, and that's I totally agree. I'm a former career academy teacher, and support your local career academies for sure, because youth programming, we have youth programming in conservation, in agriculture, and in construction. And it really is like undeniably one of the most powerful tools we have in terms of getting the next generation interested in these areas. And being as an important a field as agriculture is to our economy, we ought to make it as enticing to young people as possible. I have some brochures and newsletters on our current work, and it happens to be our 30th anniversary. I'd be happy to give those out if anyone would like one.
Alicia Neville. There you go.
I'm not a farmer, but I am from a family of farmers. And I've really, really appreciated being here today. Mr. Goodman, you wouldn't know this, but I've actually been following you for a couple of years. I know about, well, it's because, can y'all hear me? Okay. I know about your struggles with the blueberries, and not the struggle necessarily with blueberries, but like you said, with the labor, with the competition in Mexico. I mean, I do keep up with farming. I do appreciate farmers more than anything. As I said, I come from a family of farmers. Some of y'all might remember the old irrigation we used to put together and had to lock each little piece together. We didn't have the pivots and all, so I've been around that long. And I do appreciate what this committee is looking at doing. I appreciate one of you spoke about how you work with your commissioners and trying to show them different ways to balance agriculture with the development. But I'm confused, or I'm concerned, because here in Bullock County, we seem to be giving up our farmland for developers and subdivisions. I'm newly elected to the Board of Education. I have serious concerns there because we have more houses that are going to be bringing in more children than we have schools for. And we're taking away our farmland. Our taxes have gotten so high that people are now selling their farmland. Perhaps, you know, an elderly couple or something in the family doesn't want to live there. They're having to sell the land. Then we have, all of this has to do with Hyundai. I can't name all of the places, but all of these businesses that have come in from Korea, then they're buying our land up for $60,000 an acre. And farmers are having to go look in different counties to try to find land to actually farm because they don't want to give up farming. So I'm a little confused. This is what our commissioners are doing here. is to, if anybody could maybe help them, maybe speak to them, maybe Mr. Hickman, you could encourage them to stop developing so much. We're developing more than, we're developing on what we think is coming. You understand? We're not developing on what's here or the people that are needed. We are developing on what we think is coming. And then now we're losing agriculture, and you're the head of the committee. Perhaps you could help us with that, please, because I would hate to see all of my family not able to farm anymore. I have nephews, 25, 24 years old. This is all they know. This is all they've known since they were born, because that's what we did. We started as soon as we were able to walk. We were helping on the farm, and I don't want to see them lose that. So I definitely appreciate all of you being on the committee. And Mr. Hickman, I would really love for you to try to help us here in Bullock County to save our farmland. Thank you.
As many of you know, I'm born and raised in Bullock County. That's why I want to keep this on. Passionate. Jen Hilburn.
Good morning or afternoon, Senator. My name is Jennifer Hilbert, and I am the North Coast Advocate for 100 Miles. We are a coastal nonprofit that works to protect and preserve our coastal lands for future generations. For those of you that are not from the coast, you may not truly realize the expansive, rapid, and unplanned industrialization of our North Coast and the impacts it's having to our agricultural lands. Impacts range from massive land transformation, which are changing wetlands, forest, and agricultural lands to impervious concrete, to the water supply shortages driving legislators to pass private water bills, HB 146, that circumvents our local governments, despite ACCG and GMA lobbying against it. Our appetite for economic growth, something critically important for our rural areas, has far outpaced our planning, and our agricultural lands are losing. Senator Hickman mentioned in an article yesterday that his concern for areas that don't have proper zoning in place. But to be clear, our coastal counties do have zoning in place. However, when development authorities and developers are asking city councils and county commissions to haphazardly rezone from agricultural to industrial or residential, which are then approved despite intense community opposition and legitimate concerns, we then create the unplanned islands of development that don't have the infrastructure to support them. Ms. Catherine Moore from Georgia Conservancy presented some sobering information about our land transformation, but I believe, and please correct me, that that was data up until 2021. Since then, the Savannah port has expanded, Hyundai has arrived, and by 2022, our community's heads were spinning, and land grabbing, annexing, rezoning, and intense public outcry has been the theme at nearly every public meeting. The last 3 years have seen vast transformation of our lands in this area. None of it's been covered in the data we've seen today so far. Ms. Moore from Georgia Conservancy also spoke about a resource crisis that could happen in the future. Unfortunately, it's already happening here. We are rapidly losing green lands to industrial concrete. This region is running low on water, both groundwater and surface water, and that is threatening farmers' livelihood. I believe that's the definition of a resource crisis. Our only plan is EPD's most recent coastal water management plan, but that fails to consider recent data, using data from 2017 and before. There have been drastic increases in water needs that have happened in the last few years, and that's not reflected at all in the water plan. Now, Bryan County is borrowing water from Bullock County, already acknowledging before they drill the unfair impacts to farmers, all for industry and residential to support more industry. After the last Savannah port expansion, we have been building out warehousing and distribution centers far more than needed. If you look at the Colliers Industrial Real Estate Report for the Savannah area, it shows a 0.4 vacancy rate in warehouses in Q1 2023 and an 8.4 vacancy rate in Q1 2024. That's a drastic increase in vacancy in these empty warehouses. Senator Hickman, would you pass around the warehousing maps that I shared with you? With the senators. On one side is an updated map of warehouses in the area, and on the other side is those being speculated or going through annexation and rezoning. We have promised Hyundai and other industries approximately 12 to 15,000 workers, yet we don't even have a quarter of that housing. Residential housing is happening everywhere, and more ag lands are transitioning. Most homes are starting at $300,000 to $400,000, something two adults working at Hyundai cannot afford, and that's after 2031 when they honor their 50-year salary increases. Economic development is always a priority for a community, and understandably, change is always a little uncomfortable, but it should not come at such a great cost to our community. In 2000, we changed our tax policy to bring industry.
Mr. Bill Emily. And then Bobby Oderman after that. Not for me.
Good afternoon. My name is Bill Emily, and I'm an old farm boy from years and years ago. I remember my daddy plowing potatoes under because the cost was more extravagant to harvest than it was to give away. So the part goes to the farmers. I wish all the senators to understand that when we have a slide up here that says that one of the variables, one of the things that we could do for farmers is have a tax break to the farmers. But one of the things we constantly always hear is that there isn't the tax breaks for the other people, being the people that purchase the goods from the farmers. Because that's where it also starts. It's not like it starts here and it ends here. It's a complete round circle. Just like with the Hyundai facility, with the Floridian well water. How much water per day are we going to have, we are allowing to be permitted to be drawn from the Floridian aquifer right now? And I'm not sure exactly, but I think it's over close to 7 million gallons a day from the two wells. Now, the geologist told us that over here is Bryan County, and they can't drill the well because it's a yellow zone. But just a short feet away in Bullock County, you can drill and put the wells in. Well, Daddy said I'm not the sharpest tool in the toolbox, and he also said I'm not the dullest. But if you're going to draw 7 million gallons of water a day, just a short distance from each other, that doesn't make any sense. And the whole thing is that drawing this much water is going to actually suck the salt water from the ocean towards the wells. So when you look at it, it goes, with this much water, how is it going to impact the farmers in the area? Oh, well, the EPD said, well, what municipalities, Bryan County and Bullock County should do is put together a municipal fund. Well, I raised my hand at the meeting and said, where is the municipality going to get the money from to fund these municipal funds? So when the farmer's well is impacted, he or she has to either drill the well deeper, because EPA say it's going to draw down the water level 19 feet. So the farmer's got to drill the well deeper or put in a more expensive pump at whose cost, at whose cost. It falls back down to the taxpayer, the property taxpayers. But the industries coming into Bullock County don't pay property taxes because they all got tax abatements, which that's not fair. And that's why I'm asking you, senators, when you look at these bills and you look at this, with the Floridian water that they're going to draw, what impact is that going to be, or could it be on any one of the farmers or in this area that have these big wells? And if it does impact them, who is liable to pay for those impacts? It shouldn't be the municipalities. It should be the person or the industry that has caused the impact. Our taxes are constantly going up. The farmers' taxes are going up. Well, if the farmers' taxes going up, but the farmer has a farm rate on their millage rate. I, as a homeowner, I don't have a farm rate. My little plot of ground or my little garden just doesn't qualify. Again, look at these things. Look at the industry. It's terrible. We're having to pay for it. Thank you.
Bobby is our last speaker. Okay. Thank you, Bobby. David, to answer your question, this is a study committee, and we, as I think I mentioned earlier on, we will move, next meeting will be in Cornelia, Georgia. Then we're going to move to Moultrie, Georgia, and then we'll move to Cedartown, Georgia, and then we'll finish up at the Capitol. Then we'll issue our report. So this is more or less us trying to get all of our arms around this stuff and listen to people like the speaker today that know what's going on. And then we'll issue a report. And of course, we've got a great collaboration does the Senate and General Assembly does with our commissioner. And I just look for more and more work being done with our commissioner. So people, we thank y'all so much for being here today. This has been a great meeting, very informative. You know, we've been here 3 hours, almost 3 hours. And I think we've learned a lot. We understand there's a lot of passion in this room. There's a lot of passion in Bullock County. We just need to work for what's best for everybody. I've always, Earl Dowd told me in my practice in the county, he said, Billy, if we do what's best for everybody, it will be best for you. And that's the kind of life that I've lived my life on. So y'all have a great day. God bless y'all. God bless the great state of Georgia. Thank you.